In Marvel, I practiced the method of swallowing stars and amazed the Avengers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Controlling Alessa, The Changes in the Church. At the end of the corridor, Zuemo looked at the number plate hanging on the door of the ward in front of him. Number 115. This is it. He did not hesitate and stretched out his hand to push the door open. A burst of strong light shot out from the ward point after his eyes adjusted. Zuemo looked into the room. The room was very bright and looked like an ordinary ward in a hospital. In the middle of the ward was a bed completely wrapped in a white curtain. In the corner, a female nurse wearing a red top and a white hip skirt turned her back to the door. She seemed not to hear the sound of the door opening. Her hands were still on the cabinet and she was busy with something. Seeing this scene, Zuemo was certain. It seems that he made the right bet. With Bella in hand, Alessa did not avoid it. He looked at a certain position behind the bed. After a moment, a little girl wearing a purple dress and disheveled hair walked out from behind the curtain at that position. Who are you? The little girl looked at Zuemo and asked with a wary face. Zuemo looked at Alessa across from him. Through the energy fluctuations on her body, Zuemo easily guessed that the other party was the combination of the evil spirit and Alessa's evil thoughts, and was also the root of Silent Hill. A smile appeared on his face. You will know later, since the other party has appeared. Zuemo has no need to hide anymore. A ray of light shot out from his eyebrows and shot at Alessa. Before she could react, a black energy directly wrapped Alessa up. Alessa's face changed. What's going on? She felt as if she had become an ordinary person, and her connection with the world was instantly cut off. Looking at Zuemo with a wary face, she quietly retreated. When Zuemo cast magic to trap the nurses, she felt a little uneasy in her heart. However, killing Bella with her own hands was too tempting for her. You know, it has been 3 or 4 years since Bella and the others were pulled into this world, but she has never had the chance to kill them. If she misses this opportunity, she doesn't know when she will wait. Unexpectedly, Zuemo took advantage of her idea and let them in. However, some grey energy continued to overflow from Alessa's body, trying to expel the black energy surrounding him. After several attempts, all ended in failure. At that moment, she looked at Zuemo opposite her angrily. What is your purpose? During this process, Zuemo just let the other party struggle. He knew very well that the other party could not break free from the shackles of dark energy. He ignored the other party's questions. Zuemo's eyes emitted a purple light, and he raised his right hand and waved it gently a few times, and a mysterious rune pattern gradually formed in front of him. At the moment the rune was generated, Zuemo waved his right hand gently towards Alessa in the distance. The rune pattern in front of him suddenly shot into Alessa's brow. Dark shackles. In the black magic, there is a spell that can directly enslave evil spirits. Unlike the demon contract signed with humans, this spell can be cast on evil spirits by force. Similar to the effect of soul seal. Let the other party completely surrender to the caster while retaining consciousness. Of course, this kind of spell is only effective for evil spirits in this state of soul. Alessa screamed. Countless black energy overflowed from her body. In a moment, her body was wrapped in black energy and slowly floated up. Julie and Jason, who were standing behind Zuemo, saw this scene and their faces changed. They naturally guessed that Alessa in front of them might be the big boss of the world of Silent Hill, and the root cause of this situation here. After all, Bailey muttered words like devil along the way. But looking at the situation in front of him, why does Zuemo look like the big boss behind the scenes? However, the two of them were just thinking about it randomly, and did not doubt Zuemo's idea. At this time, the screams from Alessa's mouth had disappeared. Her body slowly fell from midair at this time. Her eyeballs had turned completely black. She walked up slowly and bowed to Zuemo. Master, Zuemo nodded. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Next, let me help you completely control this space. When Zuemo first got the news that there was Silent Hill in this world, his idea was very simple. That is, to clean up the evil spirits and those bad guys here, and harvest a wave of points. However, in the inner world, seeing that this world can rely on the fear in people's hearts to materialize monsters, and these monsters can also get points after killing them, he changed his mind. If there are a steady stream of humans entering the inner world, doesn't it mean that there are a steady stream of monsters for him to harvest point in this way? This will become a stable source of points. The prerequisite for achieving all this is to conquer Alessa and let her completely control the world point. Now that Alessa has become his own, the only thing left is to help her completely control the world point. This is not a difficult task for him. Zuemo's eyebrows flashed and the dark book appeared in front of him. Huge black energy beam shot out from it and injected into Alessa's body. Alessa's skirt and hair moved without wind and her body slowly floated up with the continuous injection of energy. Then the ground shook violently. Julie, Jason, and the two men who were standing behind Zuemo all tilted their bodies and almost fell to the ground. In the end, they had to lean against the wall of the room to stabilize their bodies. After that, the vibration amplitude of the floor of the room became larger and larger. When it reached a certain limit, the entire ward slowly moved from underground to above. Not long after, the room was exposed to the fog of the outside world. At this time, the energy output of the dark book in front of Zuemo also stopped. Alessa's figure slowly floated into the sky of the town. Endless dark energy shot out from her body and began to gradually erode this world. As the dark energy eroded, the town began to turn black. The speed of energy erosion is extremely fast. In less than 5 minutes, the entire town, except for the church in the middle, has been controlled by Alessa. In fact, it can be regarded as being controlled by Zuemo in disguise. These dark energies of Zisson have a perverted attribute. That is, the master recognition characteristic. All the dark energies borrowed from his body have the highest control authority on his side. Of course, there are exceptions to the dark energy that was converted by Xingji and absorbed into the dark book. These energies, after being absorbed by others, will still be controlled by the original owner, just like the backdoor left in the program, and the highest authority is still the original owner. Like this, relying on the dark energy given to her by Zuemo, Alessa completely mastered this small world. But in essence, it is the dark energy that controls this world, and she controls this world indirectly by controlling the dark energy. This also means that as long as Zuemo is willing, he can deprive her of control at any time. Even the undead transformed by the Lich in the zombie world is the same. Essentially, these undead spirits survived by the energy in Zuemo's dark book, so Zuemo could naturally control them at will. In the town, when Alessa controlled the dark energy to invade the church, something strange happened. An evil energy emerged from the church, blocking the dark energy outside. Chapter 102, The Inner and Outer Worlds, the idea of a points harvesting field. With the emergence of this energy, a voice sounded in the town. Who dares to disturb my believers? As soon as the voice fell, this evil energy formed a shadow in the sky above the church. The shadow looked like the head of some monster. Bella, who was lying on the ground, saw this scene. Her face was happy. She forced herself to sit up and knelt down towards the shadow in the sky of the church. My lord, you finally showed up. Originally, when she saw Alessa calling Zuemo master, she was already desperate. According to what she did to Alessa, the other party obviously would not let her go. However, the appearance of the god she believed in gave her hope to live again. Can these evil spirits and humans fight against gods? Obviously impossible. The facts are as he expected. As this shadow appeared, Alessa showed a trace of effort on her face. Obviously, even with the energy that Zuemo instilled in her, she was still no match for this evil god projection. Seeing this, Zuemo moved and appeared in the sky near the church. He had expected that this church should be protected by a certain evil god. Otherwise, how could he hide in the church and avoid the attacks of the monsters controlled by Alessa? He slowly flew to the front of the phantom. A phantom of a small evil god dares to be so arrogant. Zuemo could not feel the slightest pressure from the other party. When he was in the church, he already knew the name of this evil god, Samuel. He knew more or less about the famous evil gods in this world. Obviously, there was no name of this evil god among them. Obviously, this was just an unknown little character. As soon as he finished speaking, the dark god book reappeared and floated directly above the head of the evil god's phantom. A black light shot out from the book. It was like a cage covering the evil god's phantom point. The evil god's phantom seemed to feel a great threat and began to struggle violently, trying to break free from the cage point, but obviously, everything was in vain. Point in a moment, the cage began to shrink. No. In less than half a minute, the phantom of the evil god was crushed with a scream. The cage, wrapped in the remaining energy, sank into the dark book. As the phantom of the evil god disappeared, the dark energy controlled by a lesser almost instantly enveloped the church. So far, the entire space, the inner and outer worlds, were completely under a lesser's control. On the ground, Bella looked at the scene of the evil god being crushed, with an unbelievable look on her face. How is it possible? Fake. It must be fake. Ha ha ha. After the hope of appearing was shattered again, Bella, who received a series of blows in a short period of time, went crazy. Alessa and Zuemo landed at the same time. After controlling the whole world, Alessa showed a cruel smile on her face. This means that none of the people she pulled into the world can escape. She looked at the crazy Bella with resentment, and then came to Zuemo respectfully. Master, this person, leave it to you, Zu. Emo spoke directly. Before she finished speaking, Zuemo, who knew the story between them, naturally understood how deep the hatred between the two was. Besides, the only role of Bella herself for him was to lead Alessa out. Now that the goal has been achieved, she is useless. At this time, the world has returned to the foggy state of the surface world. After completely controlling this world, Alessa can freely control the world. To switch between the inside and the outside. Hearing Zuemo's words, she showed a hint of excitement on her face. Then, wires flew out from the hospital behind, entangled Bella, and pulled her directly into the basement of the hospital. Of course, she did not let go of the two men who carried Bella. These people were all the residents of the town who participated in burning her to death. It would be too easy for them to kill them directly now. Alessa was ready to let these people die in pain. After torturing them enough. Zuemo waved at her, indicating that she should solve her own problems first. Now the whole world is under her control. What remains is to think about how to allow a large number of humans to enter this town. His idea is to build this place into a haunted house. Relying on authenticity, it is expected that a large number of tourists will be attracted here soon. However, this is not something that can be accomplished in a short period of time, and it can only be done step by step. At this time, Julie and Jason, who were standing far behind and remained in a daze throughout the whole process, also came to their senses and walked up. Oh my god, it's incredible. Jason looked at Zuemo with excitement. Don't tell me that you are the legendary hermit hidden in the city. This is called half pig eats mouse, right? Isn't that what you say in Chinese? On the other side, Julie looked calmer, but the light in her eyes betrayed her. If I'm not mistaken, you were flying in the sky just now. Also, that book is a legendary magic book. Are you the legendary magician, Zu? Emo nodded silently after hearing this. Since they had already thought of the reason, he had no reason to refute it. Then Zuemo did not wait for the two to ask again. Okay, things here are over, and we should go back. Of course, if you want to experience a different life here for a few more days, I can help you arrange it. Hearing Zuemo's words, the two waved their hands at the same time. Just kidding. Although they knew that Zuemo was here, they didn't have to worry about these monsters hurting them, but no one wanted to face such things all day long. After all, these monsters almost have one thing in common, that is, they look a little disgusting. If you see too much, you may not even be able to eat dinner. Seeing this, Zuemo chuckled. With his light wave, the surrounding scene changed rapidly. The fog covering the entire town gradually disappeared, and the clouds in the dim sky quickly dispersed. The afternoon sun shone on them, as if they had come from hell to heaven in an instant. At this time, they have returned to the real world again. By the way, Carl and the others, Jason shouted suddenly, don't worry, they will be here soon. Sure enough, more than 10 minutes later, just as they returned to the parking place, Carl and his sister ran back from the direction of the church. Great, you all came out safely. Seeing the three people waiting by the car, Carl smiled. Seeing the two of them coming back safely, Jason was also relieved. Turning to look at Zuemo. Should we leave now or You eat something and rest first, and we will set off in about 3 hours. After that, Zuemo stepped forward and said to Carl, lend your sister for a while. Chapter 103, Jason the Ruthless. Carol's face darkened when he heard this. However, Zuemo's next words made him feel relieved. Lina seems to be studying photography. Let her help me shoot a video. On the way here, Zuemo had been asking Jason for information, and this matter was also learned from Jason. Of course, but you need to ask her opinion, Carol said speechlessly. Lina behind him naturally heard the conversation between the two. When she heard the first sentence, she was still a little happy in her heart, but after knowing that she was just going to shoot a video, her face collapsed instantly. But the look on her face quickly recovered and showed a smile. Of course, I'll go to the car to get the equipment. When she came out to play, she naturally brought all the professional photography equipment. But because these things were too heavy, she originally planned to go to the scene first, and then take the equipment to shoot. Since it is planned to build this place into a tourist attraction similar to a haunted house, necessary publicity is definitely indispensable. He plans to shoot a simple video first and post it online. I believe that, as long as the first batch of tourists come, it is inevitable that this place will become popular. After all, no haunted house can let real ghosts serve as NPCs like him. After a simple meal, Zuemo took Lina back to the other world. At first, when Lina saw the reappearance of this world, especially the triangle head standing not far from her, she was naturally frightened. However, after Zuemo's explanation, and watching the triangle head dance a ballet for her on the spot under Zuemo's command, the fear in her heart immediately dissipated. The next step was much smoother. These monsters are much more obedient than those stars. It is not a problem to let them perform a show like taking off their arms for more than 2 hours. Lina shot a promotional video of nearly 20 minutes. It contains various monsters in Silent Hill, acid monsters, triangle heads, butchers, scarabs, faceless nurses, combined with the weird atmosphere in Silent Hill. It is comparable to a horror blockbuster. Of course, the longest part of the video is the faceless nurse. After all, this thing's figure is so eye-catching. If you cover the head, it will be a world famous model. When the two came out of the inner world, it was almost dusk. But there was enough time for them to return to the nearby town before dark. Same as when they came. Jason sat in the co-pilot of Zuemo. Zuemo was hesitant to speak several times when he saw the other party. What do you want to say? Just say it. Hearing Zuemo's words, Jason showed a bit of embarrassment on his face. No, nothing. I just want to ask, are the monsters in that world under your control now? Zuemo nodded. That's right. There is nothing to hide. They can guess it by guessing. Jason heard the words. A hint of joy appeared on his face. Then he gritted his teeth and spoke. Well, can I buy a nurse like the one you bought before? Swish. Hearing this, their car shook, and Zuemo almost crashed the car into the mountain wall beside him. Jason held the handle beside him to steady himself. Looking at Zuemo's strange look, he waved his hand quickly. Don't get me wrong, you know, I plan to join my father's biotechnology company after graduation. I just want to buy it for research. How could Zuemo believe his lies? I remember you seemed to have told me yesterday that you didn't plan to join your father's company and wanted to start your own business. Did I remember it wrong? Being exposed in person by Zuemo, Jason's face turned red. I changed my mind again. Okay, he still retorted stubbornly. Seeing the other party's firm attitude, Zuemo sighed. It turns out that birds of a feather flock together. Those who can become good friends with the original owner are more or less a little abnormal. In the end, Zuemo did not agree. Although this thing is the embodiment of Liza's resentment, and she can have as much as she wants, God knows whether Jason will suddenly die after contacting this thing. Giving it to him is equivalent to harming him. Back to the hotel. In the room, Dana was still lying on the bed as she left in the morning. She played too much last night, and it was not until this time that her body recovered a little. Seeing Zuemo coming in, she suddenly got off the bed and hung directly on Zuemo, completely ignoring the sudden exposure of her body. Dear, you are back. Next, with dinner service, Zuemo took a comfortable hot bath. When the two were planning to play a game of police and thieves at dinner's suggestion, a knock on the door came from outside. Zuemo pushed Dinner, who was in a police uniform, away from him and came to the door to open it. Standing outside the door was Julie, who had just returned with him. Do you have time? Can we go out and talk? Zuemo, who wanted to refuse the other party, thought of the plan that Silent Hill was about to start, hesitated for a while, and nodded. If Silent Hill is really done, it will always need a manager. You can't let a child, manage it. Julie in front of him often comes into contact with these evil spirits and the like, so she is a good choice. In a private room in a coffee shop not far from the hotel. Zuemo took a sip of the coffee in his hand. What's the matter? Tell me. Julie looked at Zuemo with burning eyes and spoke after a moment. I want to learn magic from you. Hearing this, Zuemo did not show any surprise. He probably guessed that the other party asked him out at night because of the ability he displayed. If it were him, if he met the legendary sword fairy in front of him before crossing, he would also be eager to worship the other party as his teacher. Zuemo looked up and down at the other party. Why should I teach you magic? Give me a reason. When Julie heard this, her face did not change at all. She was not like those big-breasted and brainless women. Naturally, she understood that the other party would not teach her magic for no reason. I can be your woman, the kind that does not have to be responsible. Before coming, she naturally knew Zuemo. When he was in school before, he was half invisible. The only thing that attracted attention was that he had a girlfriend like Dinner, who was white, rich and beautiful. But the two broke up soon. From the information she investigated about Zuemo, he only summarized one piece of information. The other party was very lustful. Knowing this information, Julie hesitated for a long time before making up her mind. At worst, she would use herself as a condition. She was still somewhat confident about her appearance and figure. Moreover, she had never had a boyfriend since she was a child, and it was still in its original unopened state. This should be enough to impress the other party. After saying this, she looked at Zuemo seriously. Unexpectedly, Zuemo did not show joy as she imagined. Instead, he spoke indifferently. That's not enough. Chapter 104. Julie, the deal is done. Hearing Zuemo's refusal, Julie hurriedly explained. Don't worry, I haven't been touched by anyone yet. Zuemo raised his hand to stop the other party. A purple light flashed in his eyes, and a demon contract appeared in the air between the two of them. Take a look at the content above first. If you agree, sign this contract and you can start learning magic. After that, Zuemo ignored the other party and concentrated on tasting the coffee in his hand. Julie looked up at the paper-like contract, composed of black light. The content above appeared clearly in her eyes. Unconditional obedience, life is in your hands. As she read the content above line by line, Julie's face became more and more ugly. Simply put, this contract is almost equivalent to a contract of sale. As long as this contract is signed, everything about her will be under the control of the other party. Zuemo can kill her with just one thought. For a moment, she frowned and fell into deep thought. Zuemo ignored the other party's expression and continued to concentrate on tasting the coffee. He was not in a hurry. Although the other party was very suitable to be the manager of Silent Hill, she was not the only one. As long as Zuemo wanted, there was someone more suitable than her, but it would take some time. In fact, the content of the contract was completely decided by Zuemo. Those harsh contents were all added by him. Of course, he could also lend the mana to the other party without any conditions. But why did he do that? Although this mana did not require anything for himself and was inexhaustible, he was not a charity, and there was no reason to lend the mana to the other party for no reason. Moreover, since he wanted the other party to help him manage Silent Hill, the other party must be someone he absolutely trusted. He never hesitated to speculate others with the greatest malice. Put your hope on the other party's character? Sorry, he can't do it. Only after he can completely control the other party can he trust the other party. He no longer believed in character in his previous life. After more than 10 minutes, Zuemo had already refilled 2 cups of coffee. After all, there was a policewoman in black silk stockings to deal with in the evening, so he had to drink a few more cups to refresh himself. Just when Zuemo was about to ask for a third cup, Julie on the opposite side finally raised her head with a hint of anger in her eyes. I'll sign. Looking at the other party's expression, Zuemo shook his head with a wave of his hand. The contract in front of him disappeared. I don't want to sign it. When you're like this, it seems like I forced you to sign it. After saying that, Zuemo stood up and was about to leave. This contract does not have the ability to force the other party to change their minds like the soul seal. In short, the difference between the two is that after the soul seal is cast, the other party will identify with the master from the heart, which is equivalent to completely changing the other party's mind. And this contract is just equivalent to putting a collar on the other party's neck. You can force the other party to do something, but it does not affect the other party from cursing you in his heart. So, seeing the other party's seemingly helpless look, Zuemo felt it necessary to knock the other party. Let the other party understand that she begged him to sign the contract, not that he forced her to sign it. There is an essential difference between the two. Psychologically speaking, the former will be grateful to him, while the latter, although there is a contract, will definitely have some hatred for him. Seeing this scene, Julie was stunned. At this time, she realized her mistake. In this matter, she was asking the other party for help, but she had a little resentment towards the other party just now. Julie, who realized her mistake, stood up quickly, looking at Zuemo with an apologetic face. I'm sorry, I apologize for my behavior just now. Seeing the look in the other party's eyes, Zuemo understood that his purpose of beating the other party had been achieved. Besides, he didn't plan to leave. Although he could find someone more suitable than her, he didn't have the heart to look for it slowly. However, he didn't forgive the other party just like that. The contract reappeared in front of the two of them, but now a condition has been added to it. With the power of the contract, Zuemo can directly control the other party's body. In other words, he could put her in any shape like a puppet. Julie also noticed the new clause, but this time she didn't. He hesitated and signed the contract directly. As the contract was separated into two copies and inserted into the eyebrows of the two people, the content above officially took effect. Julie quickly closed her eyes and felt it. Why don't I feel anything? What do you want to feel like this? As Zuemo finished speaking, Julie did a standing split in the direction of Zuemo. Unfortunately, the other party was not wearing a skirt, and there was nothing to see. Julie blushed. Feeling that she had regained control of her body, she quickly put down her legs that were pressed against her face. But this also made her realize that the content of this contract was not false. Thinking of this, she quickly raised her head and looked at Zuemo with burning eyes. When will you teach me magic? Teach? No need at all. After saying that, Zuemo reached into an open space door. When he came out, he was holding a thick book in his hand. After recording part of the content on the Dark God book on it, he threw it to Julie. You study it by yourself for a while and try to learn it. Julie looked at the amazing scene in front of her with shining eyes. Is this also the magic on it? Of course, the first page is it. Hearing this, Julie quickly turned to the first page of the magic book. After reading the description of the space door, she showed ecstasy on her face. Doesn't this mean that you can take anything in this world at will? Zuemo nodded. You can say that. Okay, next you just need to practice well. It won't take long before you can cast this magic, and don't bother me if you don't have anything to do. I will notify you if there is something. That's it. After saying that, he stood up from his seat and turned back to the hotel. If she didn't go back, the policewoman's baton would be soaked in water. Wait. Julie saw Zuemo was leaving and hurried over. She handed a business card to Zuemo. Here is my phone number and address. Friendly reminder, I live alone. She had just seen the magic of magic, and soon she would be able to perform it. In addition, from Zuemo's words, she could tell that the other party had no intention of treating her as a slave. She was in a surprisingly good mood at this time. She even wanted to tease the other party. Zuemo took the other party's business card, took a look at it, and put it in his pocket. If you are lonely, I can let Alicia go over to accompany you for a few days. After saying that, he turned around and left directly. Hearing Zuemo's answer, Julie looked at Zuemo's back with a smile on her face. It seems that this deal seems to be not bad. Chapter 105 Nightmare Freddy. Early the next morning, the group drove back. The expedition, which was originally planned to last a week, ended in just one day. On the road, the three cars went their separate ways. Carl drove Lina and Jason back directly. Julie also drove away directly. Zuemo first went to Harrisburg, the capital of this state, and obtained the ownership of Silent Hill by using soul stealing. After all, if you want to make Silent Hill into a ghost town like a haunted house, you must follow the rules at that time. You will also have to receive tourists, and legal procedures are essential. The rest is to transform the town. He handed these things over to Dina to handle. After all, the other party's father is a state legislator, and it is easier for her to do many things. As for money, it is simple. Zuemo directly robbed the money of those legislators. Just these, he collected a wealth of more than $2 billion US. This money is enough for the initial transformation of Silent Hill. After everything was arranged, Zuemo drove directly through a space door, returned to a forest near his house, and then drove back home. Parked the car. Not long after Zuemo entered the room, there was a knock on the door. Opening the door, it was the young woman opposite, Rebecca, standing outside. At this time, the other party's face looked very pale, and her eyes were full of bloodshot. She was completely different from the beautiful young woman 3 days ago. After seeing Zuemo, the other party rushed into his arms. Save me, I don't want to die. I can't die. I don't know what frightened her in the past 2 days. At this time, she was a little incoherent, and there was a hint of crying in her tone. Don't worry, talk slowly. What's going on? Zuemo opened his mouth to comfort the other party. However, he also had some guesses about the other party's situation at this time. He could clearly feel that the other party was stained with a trace of resentment. Obviously, it is very likely that she was targeted by the evil spirit that killed her husband before. After returning to the living room, Zuemo listened to the other party crying about what happened. The last time she was taken away by the police, she was released the next day after the record was made. And the senior management directly suppressed the matter. Zuemo naturally understood that the senior management should define this case as a weird incident. However, her nightmare began from the night she was released. She did not return home that night. After all, the man had just died at home. How could she dare to return home without catching the murderer? That night, in a nearby hotel, Rebecca fell asleep in extreme sleepiness until the second half of the night. After all, she had just experienced such a thing, and she was anxious, so this was normal. In a half-asleep state, she seemed to be chased by a terrifying demon. When she woke up, she thought it was a nightmare, until she saw the torn pajamas. In a clear memory, when she ran away in her sleep, her clothes were torn by the sharp blade in the hands of the demon behind her, and the location of the scratch was almost exactly the same as the location of the tear on her pajamas at this time. She thought that the continuous blows had caused her memory to be confused. The next day she went to the hospital for a checkup, and the doctor did diagnose her with excessive mental stress and prescribed her some drugs to help her sleep. That afternoon, when she returned to the hotel, she took the medicine and fell asleep again. Unexpectedly, the same scene as last night appeared in her dream again. Perhaps her will to survive was strong enough, and this time she still woke up from the dream before the other party killed her. After seeing the wound on the back of her hand that was injured in the dream, combined with her husband's strange death, she finally realized that something was wrong. For more than a day, she had been forcing herself not to fall asleep. She was afraid that if she fell asleep, she would never wake up like her husband. During this period, she also wanted to go to the police station for help. But thinking of this absurd reason, she gave up the idea. Forced to do nothing, she returned home today. She planned to investigate and see if she could find any clues. She knew very well that if she continued like this, She would have a mental breakdown before she died at the hands of the devil in her dream. Unexpectedly, she happened to see Zuemo. After searching fruitlessly. At this time, she had not slept for more than 40 hours, and her mind had become a little dazed. She could only come to seek help from the person who was closest to her at the moment. After listening to her description, Zuemo's eyes raised. Freddy. He immediately thought of Freddy who killed people in the dream in Nightmare on Elm Street. Judging from the 3 scratches on Bilika's husband and Bilika's own experience, it is very likely that this evil spirit is Freddy. After all, he already knew that this world was a world of ghosts, and he had already come into contact with Silent Hill and The Grudge. It would not be surprising to have another Nightmare on Elm Street. Thinking of this, Zuemo also became interested. These evil spirits are all points for him. He gently placed his hand on Rebecca's shoulder. In his eyes, the resentment on Rebecca slowly flowed into his body. I hope this Freddy can be worth more money. On the way back, Zuemo had already checked point. After killing a large number of monsters in Silent Hill and the Phantom of the Evil God. He only got more than 400,000 points in total. Of these, 300,000 points were contributed by the Phantom of the Evil God. Although these points are not small, they are nothing to Zuemo, who has just spent billions of points. Besides, the cheapest seed of a plant life alone costs tens of millions of points, and the most expensive is hundreds of millions. What's more, this is not the place that needs the most points. Those treasures that can quickly cultivate plant life are the major items that consume points. As the resentment in Bilika's body disappeared, her emotions gradually calmed down. You can rest here at night. Don't worry, that thing dare not come again, Zuemo persuaded. Rebecca's expression gradually calmed down, and her mind became clearer. She took a deep breath. She wiped the tears from her face. She stared at Zuemo seriously for a few seconds, then reached out and touched his face. Forget it, I have to leave as soon as possible. She also realized at this time that ordinary people like them had no ability to resist these evil spirits. Staying here, except for the possibility of harming Zuemo, is useless. After saying that, she stood up and was about to leave. Zuemo saw through the other party's thoughts at a glance. Don't worry, I can deal with that thing. After saying that, Zuemo stretched out his hand and waved lightly, and the blanket in the room flew over, wrapped the other party up, and flew directly back to the bedroom. Seeing this scene, Rebecca's eyes widened. There was a trace of incredible look on her face. Chapter 106. See you again, Sadako. Until half an hour later, after listening to Zuemo's explanation. After learning that Zuemo was not an ordinary person, but a magician who could deal with these evil spirits, Rebecca fell asleep peacefully. She was really too sleepy. For 3 consecutive days, she only slept for less than 6 hours at this time. The sky outside had gradually darkened. There was a knock on the door again. Zuemo opened the door, and it was Jason who was standing outside. The other party was holding a paper bag. He couldn't wait to hand the paper bag to Zuemo. This is the videotape we watched some time ago. Ah, you sure your family hasn't watched this videotape? Of course I'm sure, Jason nodded, with a trace of fear on his face. After coming out of Silent Hill last night, Zuemo had asked Jason. Sure enough, he learned from the other party that they watched a strange videotape together last week. Zuemo then explained to him about Sadako. After seeing Zuemo's power in Silent Hill, he naturally did not doubt Zuemo's words. He was so scared that his hair stood up at that time. As soon as he returned home, he couldn't wait to send the videotape to Zuemo. Blake is dead, Jason said with a trembling voice. Really, Zuemo didn't even raise his head, took the videotape out of the paper bag, looked at it, and replied casually. This was already expected by him. Are you sure that we who have also watched the videotape will be fine? Jason asked with a look of trepidation. Hearing this, Zuemo raised his head. He threatened with a playful look. Not sure. Maybe Sadako will crawl out of the TV in your bedroom tonight. Noticing the look on Zuemo's face, Jason breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that the other party was just joking. After his heart was at peace, Jason asked again without giving up. Well, you really don't want to consider selling a nurse sister? I can introduce my sister to you. Get lost. After Sending Jason away, Zuemo came to the living room. He stuffed the videotape into the projector. Before sitting back on the sofa, he turned off all the lights in the room. After all, it is more atmospheric to watch horror movies this way. At this time, the sky had already completely darkened, and the room with the lights turned off was plunged into darkness. Only a ray of light from the TV in the distance prevented the nearby area of more than 1 meter from being completely dark. After a while, a dry well appeared on the TV. Then there were strange pictures one after another. Seeing this picture, Zuemo was stunned. It seemed to be no different from the picture flashing on the TV in the hotel. Well, it's a waste of feelings. Zuemo was too lazy to watch it anymore. Instead, he took a landline next to him and waited for Sadako's call. The video in the videotape was not long, only less than 10 minutes. The screen just finished playing. The phone in Zuemo's hand rang. "Hi, Sadako." "No, it's Ms. Morgan." Zuemo called her for a while. This is the evil spirit in the American version of The Grudge, not Sadako. However, because of habit, Zuemo always called her Sadako. The other end of the phone was stunned for a moment when he heard Zuemo's words and did not make any sound. "Hello, Ms. Morgan, are you listening?" Unexpectedly, as soon as this was said, the other party hung up the phone directly. Listening to the sound of beep and beep coming from inside, Zuemo muttered in confusion, "Remember me?" from Jason's mouth. He learned that, after they answered the phone, the other party seemed to hang up the phone after saying the 2 words 7 days. When it was his turn, the other party didn't say a word. Obviously, the other party seemed to have a normal human mind, and judging from the sound alone, the person on this side was himself. Zuemo just wanted to try see if the other party must follow certain rules or can control themselves. Even if the other party can control themselves and does not intend to come, Zuemo has many ways to see the other party. At worst, he can find someone else to watch this videotape. He only needs to extract the resentment that locks on the other party into his body. As the phone was hung up, a resentment gradually appeared in Zuemo's body. "Do I have to follow certain rules?" Feeling the resentment in his body, Zuemo muttered. After this resentment entered the body, it began to grow slowly under Zuemo's perception. At this rate, it will grow to the level when Zuemo was extracted from Jason and others in 7 days. Wait for 7 days. Zuemo doesn't have that time to wait for her at this moment. He extracted a trace of dark energy from the Dark God book. Under his control, this trace of energy directly approached the resentment in his body. Then slowly merged into the resentment. With the injection of this dark energy, the speed of the growth of resentment increased thousands of times. After all, dark energy is the most pure and powerful existence among all dark energies for any evil spirit. It is considered a great tonic point. Before in Silent Hill, it was by infusing a lesser with dark energy that greatly increased her strength, and she was able to completely control the entire Silent Hill. At present, the same principle applies to these resentments with this dark energy. After absorbing this trace of dark energy, the resentment has become more massive than the last time when it was gathered in several people's bodies. In Zuemo's opinion, the essence of Sadako's killing is to curse the other party. Let this trace of resentment appear in the other party's body. As the resentment gradually grows with the help of the host's body. After 7 days, when the resentment grows to the strongest, she will come out to harvest and take back the resentment. Use it to enhance her own strength. It's like a ranking list. The higher the concentration of resentment in the body, the higher the ranking on the ranking list. Sadako only needs to harvest one by one from the front to the back according to the ranking list. I should be at the top of the ranking of Sadako's killing order now, Zuemo said secretly. After all, normally, even after 7 days, the resentment in those people's bodies cannot reach this level. Then, at 10 o'clock tonight, Sadako should be the first one to find me. I think the other victims will not mind cutting in line. He looked at his watch. It was just past 8 o'clock. It's a good time to have dinner, so as not to be exhausted during the interrogation later. There are 2 social events tonight. One is Sadako, and the other is Freddy. I have to replenish some energy. After dinner, Zuemo sat on the sofa in the living room with peace of mind, thinking about how to attract more evil spirits, while waiting for Sadako's arrival. As the hands of the clock on the wall pointed to 10 o'clock. The TV opposite him turned on automatically. Zuemo's face lit up when he saw this. Finally. Here. Chapter 107. Sadako is tortured and collapses. Zuemo saw this and stood up and walked to the TV. Just like last time. The TV first played a familiar picture. Finally, it was fixed on a picture of a dry well. As the lights in the room flickered, Sadako climbed out of the dry well again and slowly crawled towards the camera. A moment later, Sadako, half of her body crawled out of the TV. She lowered her head and saw a pair of familiar shoes in her sight. Sadako was stunned. She looked up at the owner of the shoes. She immediately saw Zuemo's smiling face. This scene was so familiar it took Sadako a few seconds to react. This smile has been deeply ingrained in her mind. We meet again, Zuemo greeted her. It was not until this time that Sadako reacted. Some bad memories came up, and she hurriedly pushed her hands hard and wanted to retreat back to the TV. But it was too late to retreat now. Zuemo stretched out his hand and grabbed the other person's hair and pulled him out of the TV with force. Don't leave in a hurry. I have prepared your favorite rope whip for you. Hearing this, Sadako shuddered again. Her body struggled violently. However, in Zuemo's hands, everything was in vain. In less than half a minute, she was hung in the air again by the magic rope emitting purple light. Looking at the whip of the same material in Zuemo's hand, she showed horror in her eyes. Zuemo did not rush to ask the other party's body again. Instead, he tortured directly, with screams that only Zuemo could hear. Sadako's clone turned into resentment again and dissipated directly. Originally, Zuemo wanted to use the dark shackles to control the other party directly, but obviously, this magic had no effect on the clone. With the disappearance of this clone, a small part of the resentment in Zuemo's body dissipated. Because most of these grievances were transformed from the dark energy controlled by Zuemo. This also led to the fact that the grievances in his body had almost no major changes. Zuemo was not in a hurry and continued to sit in front of the TV. Sure enough, almost a moment later, the TV lit up again. At this time, Zuemo was finally sure Sadako was acting completely according to specific rules, otherwise, she would collapse after being tortured by Zuemo twice in a row. Unless the other party was a masochist, she would come to him again. Sure enough, this time Sadako had anticipated what would happen next. She climbed the distance after climbing out of the dry well very slowly. But it seemed that under some rules, she had to crawl forward. When she came to the TV screen, she stretched out her hand outside the TV with a nervous look. But the hand she just stretched out was held by Zuemo. Then Sadako was pulled out again by Zuemo with a look of horror. After a familiar set of procedures, Sadako was hung up again. Regardless of the other party's words of wanting to negotiate, Zuemo went straight to the torture. In the next hour, Zuemo repeated it 4 or 5 times without getting tired. By the last time, Sadako's eyes had become a little dull, as if she had turned into a ruthless masochist. It was not until this time that Zuemo sat down on the sofa. Next, we can talk about the conditions. Sadako, who was originally prepared to be tortured again, suddenly came back to her senses after hearing this. She couldn't wait to shout, "I promise, I agree to whatever you want." As she spoke, 2 lines of tears flowed from her eyes. She finally made it. Seeing the other party's tearful expression, Zuemo was stunned. It's so easy to agree to everything. What he didn't know was that although these were all Sadako's clones, the feelings of these clones could be effectively transmitted to her original body. More than an hour of continuous torture had completely broken her down. She now had only one idea. As long as the other party didn't abuse her, she would agree to whatever the other party wanted. Since you agree, your original body will come over immediately. Zuemo's voice had just fallen. The TV was turned on again, and another figure crawled out from inside. This time, the crawling speed was so fast that the limbs were waving out after images. Feeling the strength of the other party's resentment, it was indeed not on the same level as these clones. Zuemo did not expect that Sadako's original body was so powerful that it was almost as powerful as a lesser. He stared at the other party with a smile on his face. Since your original body is so strong, you don't want to try to resist. After all, I can suppress your clone, but I may not be your original opponent. Hearing Zuemo's bewitching words, Sadako shook her head like a rattle. No need. It seemed that Zuemo's previous behavior had left her with some psychological trauma. She looked at Zuemo with a trace of fear in her eyes. At this time, the other party's appearance was not what a top evil spirit should be like. It was just like a bully who had suffered all kinds of grievances. Hearing what the other party said, Zuemo shook his head in disappointment. The other party might have some misunderstandings about himself. It doesn't matter. As long as they get to know each other for a long time, the other party will naturally understand that he is not a pervert. He stretched out his hand and waved, and the rune of the dark shackle shot into the other party's brow. Feeling that the other party was completely under his control, Zuemo nodded with satisfaction. By the way, do you know other evil spirits? He looked at Sadako with hope. Also in the weird world, it stands to reason that she should know a few evil spirits. Sadako shook her head when she heard this. No, if we meet, we will try to devour each other. Obviously, even the weird she met before has been devoured by her. Zuemo sighed in disappointment. In that case, you go to Silent Hill and stay with the lesser for a while. Okay, master. After hearing this, Sadako was as if she had been pardoned, and her figure disappeared almost instantly. Looking at the place where the other party disappeared, Zuemo shook his head. The reason why he didn't kill Sadako was that he also planned to add her to Silent Hill. Since it is a horror park, the project cannot be too single. Damn, the good Washan mowing was completed by himself in simulation management, which is really unique. But there is no other way. This is the only way to ensure the maximum points, even if all the evil spirits in this world are slaughtered. It is estimated that the points he gets are limited. But in this way, it is equivalent to obtaining points continuously. Use evil spirits as tools to harvest the fear in the hearts of ordinary people. After all, these fears are like cutting leeks. After cutting once, they can be harvested again after a period of time. It can be called a renewable resource. After Sadako left, Zuemo returned to the room. Next is Freddy. I hope the other party will not let me down. Thinking of this, Zuemo closed his eyes and fell asleep in a short while. In this hour, his physical loss is much greater than Sadako. The other party only needs to scream at the top of his voice. I really need to be whipped. Chapter 108, Score Boosting Machine, Freddy. It felt like he had just fallen asleep, and Zuemo woke up with a start point. But at this time he found that he was not on the bed in the bedroom, but on the floor of a boiler room. A sinister laugh came from the end of the corridor in front of him. He stood up calmly. Is this the dream, Zuemo looked at his hands. He actually found that his physical strength and mental power had recovered to their peak state. In this world, this is obviously a little unrealistic. Obviously, he has been pulled into the dream by Freddy. Feeling the strong sense of power on his body, Zuemo's mouth corner slightly raised. In the dream, all rules are expressed in one's subconscious thoughts, as long as you can accept it in your subconscious. Everything is possible. If a person subconsciously thinks that he is a superhero, then he can really exert the strength of a superhero in a dream. This is simple to say, but in fact, 99.9% of people can't do this. After all, no matter how normal people hypnotize themselves, they still subconsciously understand that they are just ordinary people. But Zuemo is different. His strength in the Marvel world is like this. Therefore, in his dream, he is at the peak of the planetary level. At this time, the door suddenly opened. A figure walked in slowly from outside the door. As he walked, the blade on the other party's right glove scratched the wall. A sharp friction sound echoed in this space. Zuemo raised his eyebrows. When he saw this, his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. When he appeared again, he was floating in the air in front of Freddy. At this time, Zuemo saw the other party's appearance clearly. Under the black hat, Freddy's face seemed to be burned by flames, hideous and terrible. However, these did not cause any fluctuations in Zuemo's heart. Freddy on the opposite side saw Zuemo suddenly appear in front of him, and the smile on his face froze. Before he could figure out the situation, Zuemo's fist had already hit his chest. Boom. Freddy's body exploded into a pile of fragments. Zuemo's figure had already dodged. Looking at Freddy, who was broken into pieces, Zuemo floated in the air and waited for a moment. He didn't think that he could get rid of the opponent with just one blow. Sure enough, after a moment, Freddy's body gradually condensed. But the opponent was still in a state of confusion at this time. He didn't expect that he had died once before he could react. Freddy came back to his senses and looked at Zuemo floating in the sky with a shocked face. How is it possible? He couldn't help but doubt. Could it be that he had met his biggest enemy in his life, a psychopath again? Since he returned from hell for so many years, there is only one kind of person he is unwilling to provoke easily, that is, a psychopath. Many of these people are not normal in cognition. Some special ones can even do everything in dreams and torture him to death. Thinking of this, he looked at Zuemo in the air with caution. His demeanor was not as arrogant as at the beginning. Zuemo saw the other party's body condensed again, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. Immortal? He muttered. But when he opened the system panel and took a look, he was stunned. The reason was simple. Just after he killed Freddy, he actually increased the score by 10,000. He obviously didn't kill the other party, but why did the score increase? Thinking of this, Zuemo's eyes fell on Freddy on the ground again. Try again. Zuemo's figure flashed and disappeared again. Freddy saw Zuemo disappear, and his heart suddenly jumped. Then he felt that his body fell apart again like before, breaking into particles. Zuemo stood in the void in a daze. In fact, his eyes fell on the system panel. Another 10,000 points. There was a trace of disbelief in his eyes. There is no way there is a bug in the system. Then the only possibility is that Freddy is not immortal, but was killed by himself and resurrected in some way. But now, this is no longer important to Zuemo. What is important is that this is great news for him. He looked at Freddy, who had resurrected, with shining eyes. This is a huge treasure. After Freddy regained consciousness again, he looked at Zuemo in the sky, with a hint of fear on his face. He would not really die, but that did not mean that he would not feel pain at the moment his body was shattered. He realized that he seemed to have run into a tough guy again this time. He did not hesitate at the moment and was about to activate his ability to leave the other party's dream. The moment he activated his ability, his face changed. He found that he could not exit the dream just when he wanted to try again. The familiar feeling came again. No. After his body condensed again, his face was full of disbelief. Although he had encountered the kind of mentally ill person who he had no way to resist before, the other party had no way to stop him from leaving. What happened this time? Not only could he not beat the other party, he couldn't even leave. Until a few minutes later Freddy, who had been broken into pieces countless times, gave up completely. He had tried various methods, but no matter which one, he couldn't get out of this dream. In addition, he was constantly suffering from the pain of his body breaking. At this time, he showed a crazy smile with anger on his face. Come on, I'm immortal, you can't kill me. Before he finished speaking, his body was directly turned into powder again. Zuemo looked at the other party's slowly condensing body. You'd better be immortal forever. He showed excitement on his face. In just a few minutes, he had already earned more than 100,000 points. This was so cool. If it weren't for the fact that it took the other party a while to condense his body again, this number would have doubled several times. Every time Zuemo waited for the other party's body to condense, he would have flashed in front of the other party's semi-finished body. At the moment when the other party's body was formed, Zuemo's fist also fell on Fred. With such a powerful tool for scoring points, Zuemo didn't want to waste a second. Now, and Freddy had completely given up. Halfway through, he had tried to resist. After all, in the dream world, he could also obtain super speed and super strength. But these bodies that he used to think were strong were almost no different from ants in front of the opponent, and there was no way for him to live even half a second longer. Since then, he simply gave up resistance. Because there was no point at all. For a whole night, Zuemo turned into a ruthless punching machine, repeating this action over and over. But he didn't feel the slightest bit of boredom. Every time he punched, he would get 10,000 points, and he could punch until the end of time. Until I don't know how much time has passed. After Zuemo smashed the opponent again, He waited for a long time, but didn't see the opponent's condensed figure. What's going on? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, 30 million points. After waiting for a full 5 minutes, the other party was not seen. Dead. Zuemo had a look of pity on his face. In fact, he hoped that the other person would never die more than Freddy himself. But the fact is that the other party did not show up. Zuemo sighed regretfully, opened the system panel, and took a look. In this night alone, he earned nearly 30 million points on Freddy. In other words, the other party has died nearly 3,000 times, although the other party has disappeared, and there is no way to continue swiping. Zuemo is already content. He never expected that he could get so many points from Freddy. A little evil spirit. According to his idea, it would be good to get several million points at this time. In some unknown world. 3 huge demon gods stood in the void. In the void in front of them, a small ant-like figure slowly condensed. It was Freddy, who was already somewhat numb from death. What's going on? Why am I back in hell? Freddy looked at his surroundings and let out an exclamation. You loser. Do you think you don't need to consume energy to resurrect you? The demon god in the middle with 2 sharp horns on his head roared angrily. Resurrection. There was a look of confusion on Freddy's face. These 3 figures were the ancient demon gods who signed a contract with him to help him return to the world. Didn't you say that I'm immortal? What kind of resurrection? Freddy asked after reacting. Trash. Who would have thought that you would die more than 3,000 times in one night? The demon in the middle let out a roar at the beginning. The 3 demon gods signed a contract with Freddy, asking him to help them collect the power of fear and souls from the human world, and helped him condense this evil spirit body. At the time, they told Freddy that this body was immortal. In fact, what they said at the time was not wrong, but there were some discrepancies. His body was not immortal, but the 3 demon gods relied on their strength and the trace of Freddy's soul left here to resurrect him. According to the power of their demon god, it would not be a problem to help him resurrect hundreds or thousands of times. It is not wrong to say that he is immortal. After all, how is it possible in the human world to kill Freddy thousands of times with his abilities? Even if it is a being stronger than him. He only had to kill him a few times, and he was able to escape thanks to his nightmare abilities. But I never expected it. You will meet an alien like Zuemo. In fact, if there were no points rewards in the system, even a person like Zuemo who could easily crush Freddy would have killed him dozens of times at most, until he saw that he could not be killed. You will definitely choose to give up or seal him away. No one would be bored and do nothing else all night but keep killing him. In addition, these 3 demon gods are usually in deep sleep. Resurrecting Freddy is a rule that automatically operates under a certain contract. There is no need for the devil to control it. As long as Freddy dies, the contract will automatically extract energy from their bodies to resurrect the other party. Until he resurrected Freddy nearly 3,000 times and consumed 1/10 of their energy, they were awakened. It was only then that the 3 demon gods realized this problem and hurriedly resurrected it in this world. After all, the 3 of them can only be regarded as ordinary demon gods in hell. Not to mention Sithorn. Even Mephisto is an existence beyond their reach. If they continue to be resurrected, their foundation may be affected. The demon on the far right, after explaining everything clearly, sighed and looked at Freddy with doubtful eyes. What happened to you, and why did you die 3,000 times in one night? Hearing this, Freddy had a look of fear in his eyes. He quickly began to explain. Noon. Zuemo was woken up by a sound. He killed Freddy in his dream all night, and he didn't fall into real sleep until dawn. After getting up, Zuemo came to the living room. Suddenly, he saw Bellica wearing only a white shirt and busy in the kitchen. After more than 13 or 4 hours of sleep. At this time, she became the glamorous young woman again. Seeing Zuemo walking out, a smile appeared on her face. Wait a moment, it'll be ready soon. A few minutes later, Zuemo finished washing and sat at the dining table. Bellica placed breakfast on the table in front of him and then sat down opposite him. It Seems you had a good sleep last night. Zuemo took a sip of warm milk and said. Belica heard this and smiled at him. Indeed, I haven't slept so comfortably for a long time. I have to thank you very much for this. No, I have to thank you. Zuemo said. If it weren't for Belica, he might have missed Freddy, the real treasure boy. After breakfast, Belica helped him tidy up the room. He came to the computer in the bedroom and uploaded the promotional video he shot yesterday directly to the internet point. Although the Silent Hill side has not yet started construction, it should be promoted as early as possible. Besides, there is actually nothing to build there. The only thing to do is to build a wall and then a ticket office at the gate and supporting facilities. If these things are built, they can be built very quickly. 1 month is enough. Besides, he can start business directly while building. Anyway, as long as you go in, you will be pulled into the surface world by a lesser and the appearance of the surface the world is completely controlled by her. Adding a ticket office there is just a thought. The only thing that needs to be completed as soon as possible is a supporting restaurant and medical service station. These two places must be completed as soon as possible. Especially the medical service station. If you want to attract people from all over the world, at least ensure safety. Under strong stimulation, it is easy to be frightened and shocked. It's okay if there are fewer deaths, but if there are more deaths, it is not in line with the sustainable development route of the ghost town. After all, these are resources that can be reused repeatedly, and one death means one loss. Just uploaded the video. Belica walked in. At this time, she had changed her clothes. High silk plus stepmother skirt, full of young woman feeling. Zuemo turned around and looked at the other person's outfit. It was obvious that the other person came prepared. Why are you dressed like this? Zuemo asked knowingly, but his eyes were looking at the other person. Belica's figure is a typical European and American woman's figure. She doesn't look fat, but the big places are big, which makes her figure highlight an exaggerated curve. Belica looked at Zuemo with a smile on her face. Why, you don't like it? Do you want me to change another one? No need. We can change after trying it out. Chapter 110. Leaving and placing the isotope. Silent Hill. Zuemo walked out of the space gate. At this time, Silent Hill has become very lively. Various vehicles kept stopping outside the town. Seeing this scene, Zuemo was also a little surprised. He didn't expect Dinner to move so quickly. In just one day, construction has begun here. It must be said that no matter which country it is, the efficiency of the privileged class is very high. After taking a look at the workers, who began to rush to various positions, Zuemo went directly into the surface world. In a villa behind the town of the surface world. After completely controlling the surface world, Alessa has moved to this villa to live. When he walked into the villa, Alessa and Sadako were watching TV in the living room decorated very warmly. At this time, both of them returned to their normal appearance. Alessa changed into a white dress and combed her hair neatly. Like a little girl next door. Sadako also returned to normal, wearing a set of silk pajamas, sitting with Alessa. If you don't know the truth, you will definitely think that the two are just a pair of ordinary sisters. Looking at Zuemo who came in, the two stood up from the sofa. Master. Zuemo nodded. He came here this time to temporarily return to the Marvel world. It will take at least nearly a month to complete the transformation here. In this body, in order to prevent it from hiding on the balcony of a house next time it comes back. He thought about it and felt that it would be more appropriate to store it here temporarily. Besides, Julie and Jason didn't know about his identity. If he was allowed to run around freely, something might happen. After hearing Zuemo's decision, Alessa and Sadako naturally promised to protect his body. A moment later, the three came to a room in the basement. Zuemo stretched out his hand to open a portal to the South Pole, and then took out a large amount of ice from the South Pole and piled it in the room. At the same time, the walls around the room began to move like transformers. In a short while, the walls of the entire room had become more than 10 meters thick. This can ensure that the heat in the room will not be dissipated. Zuemo took down a bed from upstairs and then lay on it. His heart moved. His soul withdrew from this body. Looking at Alessa and Sadako standing beside him. During this time, you go outside to search for some suitable evil spirits and add them to the inner and outer worlds. If You want to drain the fear of people who come here. It is naturally better to diversify the monsters with their strength. They are also top existences in this evil spirit world. There are only a handful of evil spirits that can compete with them. Not to mention the situation where the two of them joined forces. The two nodded when they heard it. Seeing this, Zuemo said no more and prepared to leave directly. But after hesitating for a moment, he stretched out his hand and waved gently at the body lying on the bed. A sealed soul flew out from it and sank into the dark divine book between his eyebrows. This soul is the soul of his counterpart in this world. After he occupied the other's body, he sealed the other's soul. The other is now in a sleeping state. Zuemo thought about it and decided that he would come to this world occasionally in the future. But after all, it was his own body and it was not a good idea to seal him up like this. Instead, it would be better to find a body for him to take over in the ordinary world. As the soul entered the divine book, Zuemo also moved and disappeared on the spot. In an ordinary parallel world. Zuemo slowly opened his eyes. He looked around. He found that he seemed to be lying in a bedroom. There were two women with good figures lying beside him. The two women were sleeping with their backs to him. Looking at the smooth backs of the two women, Zuemo sighed. Was it because he chose the wrong time or something else? Why did none of these bodies do serious things every time they traveled to a world? He got up and put on his clothes, walked into the bathroom in the room, and then stepped into a space door. When he came out of the space door, he was already standing in a villa in Kyoto, an island country. The villa covers a very large area. It can be imagined that the people living here are either rich or noble. I let you travel through this kind of family. I think you will thank me after you wake up. Zuemo muttered to himself. The reason why I chose to help him travel through to the island country is that I think with his talent, it is very suitable for him to harm these islanders here. It can also bring glory to the country. Flashed into a bedroom of the villa. A young man in the bedroom was staring at a document in his hand with a sinister look. Seeing Zuemo suddenly appeared in the room, his face was stunned. Who are you? Who let you in? Obviously, the other party thought he was a servant in the manor villa. Zuemo ignored the other party and stretched out his hand and gently waved, dragging the other party's soul out. The man in a phantom state floated in the air, looking at his body falling softly behind him, with a look of horror on his face. Before he could react, Zuemo gently clenched his right hand, and the man's soul shattered directly. Zuemo collected the spiritual fragments containing the other party's memory, then took out the soul of his own counterpart, first integrated these fragments into his soul, and then injected the soul into the body on the ground. After everything was done, he snapped his fingers. Seeing that the other party was about to wake up, Zuemo turned around and left. After returning the body, he left this world directly. In the villa, the counterpart slowly woke up, looking at the surrounding environment and the memories that suddenly flooded into his mind. His face was stunned at first, and then showed ecstasy. I traveled through time. He only remembered that he had just hooked up with the neighbor's young woman, and before further development, the other party's husband returned home, and he had no choice but to hide in the closet in the bedroom. I don't know when I fell asleep, and when I woke up, I was already here. Combining the extra memories in my mind, he came to this guess. From these memories, his current identity is a rich second generation from an island country. But the situation doesn't seem to be very good. The original owner's mother died early, and his father remarried a young and beautiful stepmother, and she gave him a half-brother since having a younger brother. This stepmother has tried every means to sow discord between him and his father, and the purpose is naturally to help her son fight for the family property. At present, the stepmother has designed a trap for the company he temporarily manages. If his father knows about it, I'm afraid his status in his father's heart will be greatly reduced. Just as he sorted out his thoughts, there was a knock on the door outside. He tidied his clothes and opened the door. Standing outside the door was a woman in a purple dress. The woman had fair skin, delicate features, and a slender swan neck, making her look completely unlike a married young woman in her 30s. On the contrary, the plump figure wrapped in the purple dress made her look even more charming. From memory, I know that this person is his stepmother. Zuo Deo Missa. Zuo Deo Missa crossed her arms and walked in gracefully. Let's talk. Quit the company? Absolutely impossible, Zu. Emo's peer looked at the woman who seemed to be elegant even when him, and rejected her firmly. Impossible. What will happen to you if your father knows about the threatening loss this time? By then, you will lose more than just the control of this branch. SYNOPSIS looked at him calmly, and from her expression, it can be seen that she seems to have already taken him. The peer saw the threatening words of the other party, walked up to the other party with a gloomy face, controlled the other party's hands, and pressed them against the wall behind him. What are you going to do? For the first time, panic appeared on SYNOPSIS' face. The peer on the opposite side ignored her, but pulled off the long skirt on her body. Seeing this, SYNOPSIS looked shocked and opened her mouth to call for help. But before she could make a sound, her mouth was covered by the other party's hand. Mrs. Misser, you don't want my father to see our current situation. Chapter 111. Can you give me a reminder before you come in? Marvel World. SYNOPSIS' figure suddenly appeared in the beach villa. As soon as I turned on my phone, a ringtone rang. Glanced at the screen. Avril, put the call through. Avril's voice came immediately from the other side. Oh my god, you finally answered the phone. Do you know how many calls I've made to you in the past few days? On the other end of the phone, Avril's face was speechless. Obviously, she felt a little melancholy to have such an irresponsible boss at the stall. Forget it, I don't even go to the company, and I don't even answer the phone. She even doubted whose company this was. I'm sorry, I've been out for a few days, and there's no signal on my phone. A look of embarrassment flashed across SYNOPSIS' face. By the way, is there something wrong? Afraid that the other party would complain again? SYNOPSIS quickly changed the topic. Speaking of this, Avril on the opposite side put away the resentment in her words. Complaints are complaints, but when it comes to work, her strong woman style is immediately revealed, without any personal feelings mixed in. Miss Potts, couldn't he contact you a few days ago? So she contacted me. The Stark Group's Industrial Expo will be held next month. As the second largest shareholder of the group, you need to attend on time. Also, Ms. Potts and Mr. Stark asked me to tell you, thank you for your reminder last time, otherwise he would have been in danger in Morocco a few days ago. He asked me to tell you to come over when you have time. He wants to thank you very much. After a few minutes, SYNOPSIS hung up the phone. Has Tony been attacked with a whip? Judging from the fact that Tony wanted to thank himself, he should have followed his own advice. According to the plot, Whiplash should be rescued by Justin Hammer of Hammer Industries soon. Then he relied on the whipcord to obtain the method of making the arc reactor, thereby messing up the expo. SYNOPSIS obviously would not allow this to happen. After all, Stark Industries is now his property, and destroying the expo is equivalent to destroying his assets in disguise. Although money has almost no effect on him now. But this does not mean that others can infringe upon his property at will. However, this kind of thing does not require him to do it himself. If everything needs to be done by himself, what use are these subordinates? He planned that it would be enough to send Layer 1 there. Layer 1 is the natural nemesis of these steel armors. Those iron lumps in his hands were almost no different from toys. Thinking of Layer 1, I don't know if the other party has brought his daughter back. SYNOPSIS was very impressed by the green-haired polar star. After a few minutes, SYNOPSIS walked out of the villa. It was now approaching evening, and the sky was getting dark. SYNOPSIS vaguely saw two figures lying on a deck chair under a parasol on the beach not far away. Seeing this, he walked in that direction. As the location of his boss's villa, this place naturally has the best view on the island. When he got closer, he saw clearly that there was a white-skinned blonde figure wearing a bikini on the recliner on the left. It was Misty Craven. On the other couch, the figure with black hair and wheat-colored skin was Silok. As if they heard the footsteps behind them, the two turned their heads and looked in this direction. After seeing SYNOPSIS walking over, Lindy quickly stood up and bowed to SYNOPSIS. Owner, Raven, on the side, sat up from the recliner and looked at SYNOPSIS walking over with a smile on his face. Boss, you probably won't mind us two resting on the beach, right? Raven and Lindy have known each other many years ago. Ever since Lindy followed Apocalypse to the island and was captured, the two of them have often gotten together. Even when going on missions, it's about acting together. Of course not, SYNOPSIS shook his head. He's not that mean yet. You two haven't been out on missions during this time. Zoo. Emo casually pulled out a lounge chair from the space store on the side and lay down on it. I have to say that it feels good to lie on the beach and enjoy the sea breeze at this time. Of course not. Raven objected. The two of us just caught a strange person yesterday. Emma said that person was very valuable, so she gave the two confused of us a few days off. Weird person. Zoo. Emma looked. How weird is that? After hearing Emo's question, Raven's expression also became serious. To be precise, the other party's abilities are somewhat similar to mine. She can also transform into the appearance of others. Not only that, she can also obtain the memory of the transformed person through touch, but her fighting ability is too poor, and her physical appearance is much uglier than mine. Her skin is shit green, and she has a pair of pointed ears. As she spoke, Raven curled her lips, as if this would make her feel better. After all, the other party has similar abilities to hers, and is stronger than hers. This somewhat made her feel a little unconvinced. Green skin, pointy ears, Skrull. Zoo. Emo showed a surprised look on his face. According to the time, there are indeed many Skrulls living on Earth at this time point, but I didn't expect that Raven and the others would catch one. Where did you catch this person? Zoo. Emo, who came back to his senses, continued to ask. This person disguised himself as a government official, took advantage of his position to illegally collect money and accept bribes, and was hated by people who offered a reward for assassination. I happened to take this task after the soldiers were trained. In addition to a part of them who were specifically hunting gang members and terrorists. Emo also asked people to set up a platform online to publish and undertake killer tasks, but it is not like those ordinary killer groups. The tasks posted on this website must provide evidence of the victim's evil deeds, and only after verification will they be accepted by the subordinates. Of course, the corresponding price is much more favorable than other platforms. Some of the soldiers on the island are usually responsible for taking on such tasks. It can not only help Zuemo gain points, but also increase some revenue. Where is that person imprisoned? He was sent to the laboratory for research. Hearing this, Zuemo stood up and planned to ask Emma. After all, the other party is a psychic, and he should be able to obtain some useful information from his brain. Through the space door, Zuemo came to the living room of Emma's room. At this time, Emma was lying lazily on the sofa, holding a book in her hand and reading with relish. Noticing Zuemo, who suddenly appeared in the room, Emma looked calm. She was already a little used to it. The other party almost never walked through the front door when he came to her room. Dear, next time you come in, can you remind me in advance? Chapter 112. Hulk Goes Rage. Zuemo heard this. Okay, I'll try my best. He sat down on the sofa opposite Emma. After a while, Emma finished listening to Zuemo's question. Indeed, I have read the other party's memory once. The other party is not from Earth, but from a life planet in the Andromeda galaxy. I thought Zuemo would be surprised after hearing this, but I didn't expect his face to remain unchanged. She didn't know that Zuemo had already known the details of this Skrull. As Emma described, Zuemo also obtained some key information from it. There are now more than 100,000 Skrulls living on Earth. And this number is still increasing year by year. However, these Skrulls hid themselves, except for their leader. Ordinary Skrulls like him didn't know who the others were disguised as. Even his contact with his superiors was one-sided. Obviously, this is also to prevent them from being caught and causing the whole group to be wiped out. If she knew her identity in advance, it would be easy to say that Raven could disguise herself as this congressman and contact the contact person. However, Emma didn't know about this situation before reading the other party's memory. And obviously, after being missing for a day or two, this method is not feasible. The other party will obviously be alert. It is very likely that she will be abandoned directly. But Zuemo didn't care. Anyway, in the short term, these Skrulls did not pose any threat. The most important thing is that the genes of these Skrulls have made a breakthrough in the research of Sentinel robots. According to those researchers, the Sentinel robots will soon usher in a major upgrade. After describing the situation, Emma poured a glass of red wine for her and Zuemo. Are you going to leave tonight? At this time, the sky outside had completely darkened. I'll leave after a while. The next morning in a small alley behind Stark building Zuemo walked out of the space gate. Just after walking out of the space gate Zuemo heard bursts of exclamations and explosions on the street at the end of the alley. There was a trace of doubt on his face. He flashed to the intersection and looked at the street. He immediately saw a tall humanoid creature with green skin in the middle of the road, holding a car with his bare hands and waving it on the street. Hulk. Zuemo was surprised. Around him, several people in plain clothes, holding tranquilizer guns, shot at the humanoid creature. After seeing one of the familiar figures, he immediately understood that these people were all from Shield Point at this time. A figure in armor swooped over. It was obvious that Tony heard the noise and rushed over after all. This is under the Stark building. Tony rushed over, but before he could play a role, he was slapped away by Hulk waving the car in his hand like a fly. Coincidentally, this figure happened to fly in the direction of Zuemo. Zuemo flashed, and this figure was embedded in the wall behind him. Tony's palms were facing back, and he pushed his body out of the wall with the thrust. The mask opened, revealing Tony's familiar face. Tony, do you need help? Zuemo saw the other party's embarrassing situation and teased him. When Zuemo saw this scene, Tony also showed a trace of embarrassment on his face, but he still pretended to be calm and explained, "Of course not, I can easily deal with the other party, now it was just because I was careless. You can rest assured to watch how I play with this big guy here." After saying that, Tony's mask closed, and his body moved, and flew towards the battlefield again. This time Tony was smarter, and did not rush up to fight with the other party. Instead, several gun muzzles popped out from his shoulders, and dozens of small explosive shells poured out from them. For a while, Hulk's whole body was shrouded in a huge explosion of fire. As the explosion ended, the eyes of the people around all looked towards the gradually dispersing smoke and dust. Roar. An angry roar came from inside. Before the sound fell, a car flew out from inside and smashed in the direction of Tony. Following closely, the huge figure of Hulk also followed behind the car and jumped towards Tony. The moment Tony saw the car, under the auxiliary combat system of the armor, his figure had already climbed up to a higher place and narrowly avoided the car flying towards him. However, the Hulk who followed closely behind jumped directly in front of him. Looking at the armor close at hand, Hulk showed a hint of evil smile on his face. At the same time, his right hand hit Tony's body. Oh, shit, Tony only had time to utter a curse, and his body flew out under the huge force of Hulk and fell at Zuemo's feet again. Hey, are you really going to stay here and watch? When did you become so easy to accept my advice? Tony stood up from the ground, moved his aching body, and complained. Although the armor is equipped with the most advanced shock absorption system, his body almost couldn't bear it under this huge force. Okay, it was rare to see Tony say that he was so submissive, so Zuemo stopped standing by and watching. He walked towards Hulk. As he walked, the feather armor that had turned into clothes began to gradually change shape. However, in just 2 steps, it had turned into a pure black armor that completely wrapped him up. This armor was not like Tony's iron armor. Although it was also streamlined overall, it had more complicated shapes. This was a special form stored in the feather armor. The shapes above were not just decorations. In the normal state of cloth armor, it could only remove 90% of the power. The lines formed by these shapes could remove 95% of the external force. Of course, this was also within a rough range. From the star level to the domain master level. Below the star level, even the defense of the feather armor could not be broken, and almost 100% of the power would be offset by the armor. After reaching the realm of the realm master, it had far exceeded the tolerance of the feather armor. It was very likely that the feather armor could be shattered with one blow. At this time, Hulk, who had fallen back to the ground, had already set his sights on the shield agents holding tranquilizer guns around him. Although these anesthetic needles could not penetrate his skin at all, the constant harassment had successfully angered him. He leaped in front of an agent and punched him into the building next to him, and then rushed to the next target. These agents were like bowling balls and were punched out by him. Agent Hill, who was standing in a corner, saw this scene. His face changed, and he hurriedly fled to the street behind. However, he was caught up by Hulk behind him. After running 2 steps, the huge fist hit Hill. Seeing this scene, Hill had no time to react, and the only thing he could do in the end was to close his eyes. Feeling the approaching fist wind, Hill had only one thought in his mind at this time. I haven't even had a relationship yet, and I'm going to die like this. I'm really unwilling. Chapter 113. Hulk is hammered. She closed her eyes and waited for 5 or 6 seconds. Except for a loud noise, Hill didn't feel anything special. She opened her eyes again in confusion. Logically, she should have flown out by now. Judging from Hulk's previous record, the other party seemed to have no principle of not hitting women. After seeing the situation clearly, Hill's face showed a look of surprise. At this time, a black figure blocked in front of him. It seemed that he was confronting the Hulk on the opposite side. At this time, the figure wrapped in armor turned his head. "Miss Hill, we meet again." Hearing this familiar voice, Hill's face was stunned. "Zoo, it seems that Miss Hill is impressed by me. You can tell it's me just by listening to the voice." Zoo. Emo's voice came out of the armor again. Hulk, who was standing opposite, saw that the other party didn't move after being punched by him, and he was still thinking about chatting with the woman behind him, and his face showed an angry look. He punched Zuemo again with his backhand. "Be careful, Hill," cried out in surprise. When he saw this, she knew clearly how powerful the Hulk was. The car was like a toy in his hand, and he could throw it away at will. Faced with her reminder, Zuemo seemed to have not heard it, and still stood there, without any sign of wanting to dodge. At this time, Tony in the distance also saw this scene. He rushed over here. He knew that Zuemo had the same ability as Magneto, and could control metal. With this ability, it was not difficult to control the Hulk. But he never thought that Zuemo actually ran directly in front of the Hulk to save people. At this time, he was secretly complaining in his heart. "You are a mage, and you have to run to such a berserker to fight with him?" Even though Zuemo's armor looked well defended, he had just blocked Hulk's punch. But you have to know that Hulk's punch just now was aimed at ordinary people, and the power was not too great. And the next punch was thrown by the opponent in anger. However, although he was not slow, it was obviously too late. Under the anxious eyes of the two, Hulk's fist hit Zuemo hard. Boom. After a loud bang, smoke and dust rose. Hill, who was close, was almost knocked to the ground by the huge shockwave. Just after stabilizing his body, Hill hurriedly looked towards Zuemo's position. Hulk's huge fist was hitting Zuemo's shoulder at this time, and Zuemo's figure was still standing straight in the same place as before. "How is this possible, Tony?" exclaimed. Even a tank would be dented by Hulk's punch, but Zuemo in front of him didn't move at all. "What material is this armor made of? How could it be so strong?" The armor he wore was made of the strongest material he could find. Even so, under Hulk's 2 attacks just now, part of the outside was damaged. This was when he flew out every time to relieve most of the force. Standing still like Zuemo, the force he endured was at least twice that of his armor. Zuemo ignored the shock of the 2 people. The reason why he didn't fight back just now was to test the defense of this feather armor. Facts have proved that the 3rd level force armor is indeed powerful. Hulk tried his best, but couldn't break the defense. It's true, this armor can completely resist attacks below the stellar level. In other words, if the punch force does not exceed 1,000,000 tons, even if he stands still and lets the opponent attack, the opponent can't hurt him at all. Can Hulk's punch force reach 1,000,000 tons? Obviously it's still far away. According to Zuemo's estimate just now, it can't even reach a fraction of this value. After 2 consecutive punches, Zuemo was unharmed, and the Hulk on the opposite side went berserk in anger. He roared at Zuemo in anger, and then clenched his fist and hit Zuemo again. However, Zuemo, who had already tested the defense of the feather armor, obviously didn't intend to waste time with the opponent. He raised his left hand, gently raised his palm, and blocked the opponent's fist. Compared to his palm, the opponent's fist was simply a behemoth. However, even such a huge fist was instantly blocked. After touching Zuemo's palm. Hulk tried several times, but his fist could not move forward at all. "You're done. It's my turn now." Zuemo's unhurried voice came from the helmet, and then his body slowly floated up. After reaching the same height as Hulk, his right hand stretched out like lightning. The fist hit Hulk's face directly. Hulk's figure disappeared instantly. A loud noise came from the side, and a huge hole appeared on the wall of a building on the left side of the road. Judging from the size of the hole, it was obviously Hulk's masterpiece. After a few seconds, Hulk's roar came from the building. Then his figure rushed out from behind the hole again. With eyes full of anger, Hulk looked at Zuemo standing not far away, and spat out the teeth that were knocked out. He roared. Hulk's body grew bigger with this roar obviously. After having several teeth knocked out, his anger was completely aroused. After bending his legs, Hulk clenched his fist, and rushed towards Zuemo. Zuemo stood there without any intention to move. Until Hulk jumped in front of him. He casually raised his hand to block the opponent's fist, and at the same time, his body rose a distance, and his right fist hit Hulk's face again. Boom, smoke, and dust filled the air. When the dust dispersed, a large pit more than 10 meters deep appeared on the spot. Hulk's huge body lay at the bottom of the pit with his eyes closed. He had obviously fainted. Tony and Hill in the distance were stunned by this scene. Until Zuemo turned around and landed in front of Hill. The feather armor on his body seemed to turn into liquid, and under the flow, it turned into a casual outfit again. After Hulk's rampage for so long, there was no one on the surrounding streets, so Zuemo didn't have to worry about being seen. Looking at Zuemo standing in front of him, Hill came back to his senses. But there was a hint of brilliance in her eyes when she looked at Zuemo. She patted her chest gently with her right hand. If it weren't for you this time, I'm afraid S.H.I.E.L.D. would have to hold a memorial service for me. Indeed, I saved your director a lot of pension money. He has to thank me. Well, you go back and tell Nick Fury to consider giving me a fighter plane as a reward. Zuemo said casually. I'm not worth a fighter plane. Hill smiled and shook his head. But this time I have to give you a good answer. Chapter 114, the prototype of the anti-Hulk armor. But I guess you won't have time for the next few days. Zuemo glanced at Hulk, who was lying in the pit and had recovered into Dr. Banner and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents flying around, and joked. Okay, you guessed it right. I'm afraid I'll have to spend my nights working overtime for the next week. Hill looked at the messy scene around him, touched his forehead, and sighed. At this time, the sound of a helicopter sounded in the air. Zuemo looked up. Your S.H.I.E.L.D. support has arrived. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. After saying that, Zuemo turned around and walked towards Tony in the distance. Wait for my call. Hill looked at Zuemo's leaving figure and shouted. She didn't look back until the other party and Tony disappeared at the door of Stark Tower. What are you looking at? Coulson's voice sounded from the side, startling Hill. When did you come here? Just now? Can you make a little noise when you walk next time? Hill covered his chest, glanced at him, and then began to direct the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to clean up the scene. Coulson was left standing there with a messy look on his face. In Stark Tower, Zuemo and Tony stood in the elevator. The surrounding Stark Group employees looked curiously at Tony and his armor. Zuemo silently took 2 steps to the side, pretending not to recognize Tony. However, obviously all this is in vain. Almost no one in Stark Tower does not know the two of them. After a while, the two got off the elevator. This is already the top level of the company, and no one else can come up. After confirming that no one was around, Tony started to complain. I've already said it. Just fly up from outside. Why do you have to take the elevator? I'm like an exhibit being visited by those people. What's wrong with this? You didn't show your face anyway. After Tony thought for a moment, he realized that this was indeed the case, and then he gave up. It wasn't until this moment that he asked, what's the matter with that armor of yours? With such an advanced and powerful armor, you ask me to build her armor for your wife. Are you afraid that your wife will do domestic violence to you when she wears that armor? Obviously, in Tony's opinion, Zuemo's power just now was due to the armor. It's not surprising that he thinks this way. After all, who would have thought that the power of ordinary people could reach that level? One punch punched a large crater more than 10 meters deep in the concrete pavement. He estimated that the force was at least 10,000 tons. The maximum strength of his armor is only about 50 tons. The opponent is at least 200 times stronger than him. Judging from the speed when he just rescued people, it was much faster than his own armor, and he was simply invincible. Can we discuss something, Tony? looked at Zuemo with burning eyes. No, Zuemo simply refused, knowing that Tony definitely wanted the armor design drawings. But he relied entirely on his own strength and had nothing to do with the armor. I can exchange the entire Stark Industries shares for it, Tony explained quickly. Zuemo sighed after hearing this. He turned to Tony and said, my armor only has a protective function. The reason why I knock out the opponent depends on my physical strength. Do you understand the physical strength? After hearing this, Tony spread his hands, sat down on the sofa in the office. Okay, I can understand if you don't want to change, but you don't need to use this excuse that even a 3-year-old child doesn't believe. Do I look like a fool? Zuemo was speechless when he heard this. He reached out and pulled off his metal mask, kneading it like dough in his hands. Finally, he formed a fist with the middle finger raised in front of Tony. Do you believe it now? Tony stared blankly at the raised middle finger in front of him. He reached out and touched it. It was indeed the titanium alloy of his mask. By Gaz, you a humanoid Tyrannosaurus. Tony looked up at Zuemo in disbelief. He finally understood why the other party was still so alive. When he got off the boat last time he went to Sea Point. But how did those girls survive? Simply incredible. After a few minutes, Tony handed a chip to Zuemo. After thinking about it, it seems that this thing is more appropriate as a thank you. After all, other things don't seem to have any effect on you. Zuemo took the chip from the other party's hand. What is this? When Tony heard this, a confident smile appeared on his face. After understanding that Zuemo did not rely on the armor, he felt much better. At least this showed that the armor he had spent several years researching was still the world's leading level point. Although there may be little resistance in front of Zuemo point, but in his opinion, this person is considered a pervert and there is no need to compare him with him. After all, the physical strength reaches 10,000 tons, which is so damn crazy. He pressed a button on the tablet in his hand. A holographic projection appeared on the table between the 2. In the projection, there is a huge instrument that is slowly moving in the satellite orbit. I call it Veronica. As Tony pressed a button on the tablet, the screen began to demonstrate. The satellite named Veronica he mentioned seemed to have received some kind of call, suddenly left the orbit, and rushed into the atmosphere. In almost an instant, it reached an altitude of less than 1,000 meters above the ground. Then various parts began to fly out from the satellite. These parts flew towards the figure wearing armor on the ground. During the flight, these parts began to deform continuously, forming one part after another, and finally all combined on the figure wearing armor. After the combination was completed, the entire armor was 2 circles larger than before. The height was more than 2 meters, and various heavy weapons had been added to the armor. Tony explained on the side, because of the mobility, the weapons carried on the armor are not many, so I came up with the idea of making a weapon supply package. Don't look at the small size of this satellite. The various weapons and equipment carried on it are enough to launch a small war. When Zuemo saw this satellite image, he understood it instantly. Isn't this the prototype of the anti-Hulk armor? However, Tony had never met the Hulk before, so he didn't think about it that way, but used it on external weapons. Obviously, this thing should be used on Wanda's armor. Sure enough, after Tony finished explaining, he pointed to the chip in Zuemo's hand and said, you just need to insert this thing into the armor, and you can get the control authority of a weapon supply pack. Hearing this, Zuemo nodded. Although he thought Wanda might not be able to use it, Tony gave it as a thank you gift, and he had no reason to refuse. But he suddenly reacted. A weapon supply pack? How many of these did you fire? Tony smiled when he heard this. Not many, probably a few hundred. However, after fighting with the big guy today, I have a new idea. Can make a giant external armor, so that it will be much easier to deal with this kind of big guy next time. Chapter 115 Assistant Jenna. After Zuemo put away the chip, after hesitating for a long time, he casually took out 10 kilograms of ferocious beast meat and placed it on the table between the 2 of them. Tony was startled when he saw what suddenly appeared on the table. He suddenly stood up from the sofa and looked around. What's going on? Zuemo saw the other party's nervous expression and a smile appeared on his face. Notice his expression. Tony breathed a sigh of relief and sat down on the sofa again. What's wrong with you? No. Where did you get it from? Tony reached out and poked at the bag in front of him. After confirming that it was not a sponge prop, he asked with a surprised look on his face. You don't have to worry about this. This is for you to eat so that you won't have to have someone help you get off the boat next time you go to sea. Hearing Zuemo's words, Tony's eyes lit up. Can I be as strong as you after eating this? You're dreaming. The smile on Tony's face did not diminish. He also knew that this was unlikely. If eating this little thing can achieve Zuemo's physical fitness, then how could Zuemo give this thing to him for free? At least it must not be given 3 or 7 points for the next time he gets on the ship. No, it is 19 points. Tony didn't bother to ask what kind of animal meat it was. Anyway, it didn't look like all the animals he knew so far. After Zuemo put down his things, he stood up and left directly. Although these ferocious beast meat only consumed a few points, it was of great help to Tony. At the very least, his physical fitness should be tripled. After coming out of Tony's office, Zuemo had not yet reached the elevator. A figure walked up and pushed him into the single bathroom nearby. Zuemo was not flustered by this. He had long noticed that this figure was Natasha from the Stark group. Pushing Zuemo onto the toilet, Natasha sat directly on his lap. Do you have time now, Zuemo looked at his watch after hearing this. I have to go to the company in the afternoon and have about 3 hours to spare. When Natasha heard this, the corners of her mouth raised slightly. Enough. Afternoon. Among the companies in the Empire State Building. Zuemo walked in from the door at this time. The front desk was still the Asian girl with long silver white hair that I saw last time. I saw Zuemo walking in. The girl quickly stood up from her seat. Boss, Zuemo nodded towards her and then walked inside the company. The girl looked at his retreating back with a trace of confusion on her face, and then she gritted her teeth and seemed to have made up her mind. Nansu, seize this opportunity. You may not have such a good opportunity in the future. Zao. Nansu cheered himself up. In the president's office, hundreds of tons of silver. What do you want so much silver for? Zuemo sat on the chair behind the desk. Don't worry about this. Can I make accessories for my girlfriend? Avril heard his perfunctory answer. He rolled his eyes speechlessly. It's the number of your girlfriends in millions. After complaining, Avril didn't say anything more. After all, Zuemo was the boss, and she only needed to do things according to his orders. By the way, the faster the better. It's best to get it done tomorrow. Avril nodded. Don't worry, I promise to be there before noon tomorrow. After saying that, she hurriedly turned and walked towards the door. This matter is not difficult for her. She can get it done by simply contacting 1 or 2 larger silver companies. As long as the funds are in place, the other party will be able to send a special car to deliver it tomorrow morning at the latest. And now the company's cash flow is very abundant. After all, Zuemo had sold most of his assets a year ago, and the capital flow in his hands was huge. As Avril walked out, a plump blonde woman walked in. This woman's name is Jenna, and she is the assistant Avril hired for him. However, because the other party had just been recruited into the company, Zuemo's system awakened and then turned on the missing mode. This was only the second time the two met. Jenna put the coffee on the tray on the table in front of Zuemo. Boss, your coffee, thanks, Zuemo nodded without even raising his head. What he held in his hand was the company's revenue report for more than a year. As his mental power improved, Zuemo's memory and brain's reaction ability naturally also improved. It only took him less than 5 minutes to read the above content. He didn't realize it until he closed the file and raised his head. Jenna was still standing beside him. After watching Zuemo close the file, Jenna came closer. It seemed that he came to Zuemo's ear accidentally. Boss, do you need anything else? Zuemo turned to look at her. Seeing the inexplicable smile on the other person's face, he immediately understood what the other person meant. Speaking of which, when Avril recruited this assistant for him, she also understood that according to Zuemo's character, the assistant's ability was not the most important, but the appearance and figure were the most important. As an old classmate for many years, Avril knows almost everything about Zuemo's preferences. When she saw Jenna for the first time, she knew that she was definitely Zuemo's type. As for her business ability, it was not important. Jenna was naturally clear about the twists and turns. After all, among those recruited at the same time, there were countless talents who graduated from various prestigious universities and were more capable than her. Why would they hire someone with ordinary academic qualifications and abilities like her? She had long been prepared to pay something for this. But things were unexpected. Since she joined the company, except for meeting the boss Zuemo 2 days ago, the boss had not come to the company once in almost 2 years, and her assistant was just a vase for Zuemo, and Avril did not expect the other party to do anything. This led to her doing nothing almost every day. After receiving a monthly salary of $70,000 to $80,000 US for 2 years, she unconsciously felt a little guilty. If she didn't pay something, she really felt a little uneasy. Moreover, she was a little uneasy in her heart, fearing that she would be fired by the company one day. According to her ability, let alone $70,000 or $80,000, she may not even be able to find a job that pays $10,000 or $20,000 US a month. When Zuemo came to the company last time, she had already made up her mind to show her value, but she didn't expect that the boss had disappeared in the office before she could show her value. So this time, she was completely determined. She had to consolidate her position as an assistant no matter what. After asking Zuemo, Jenna hugged his arm without waiting for Zuemo to reply. "Boss, do we want to go to the lounge next door?" Zuemo smiled. He would naturally not refuse such a thing. In this case, it was a matter of mutual consent. If you refuse, the other party will feel uneasy. No, this place is good. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Return to Kamatage. More than 2 hours later, Zuemo walked out of the office contentedly. Avril had just reported. Hundreds of tons of silver will be delivered to the warehouse designated by Zuemo tomorrow morning. His goal was achieved, and he was going to leave. When he reached the door of the company, boss, Zao Nansu at the front desk caught up. "It was my fault for the last time. I actually stopped you outside the door." Zuemo shook his head when he heard it. "I've already said that you did nothing wrong, and you did your job conscientiously. Don't take it to heart. No, it's my fault anyway. Otherwise, I'll treat you to dinner tonight as an apology to you." Hearing this, Zuemo sighed in his heart. Forget it, it's directed at me again. This is the trouble of rich people. As long as these women know your worth, they will be more proactive than anyone else. What iceberg goddess, it's just that they are too lazy to care about those who are not interested. Zuemo looked at Zao Nansu's eyes in front of him. It is full of desire for money. Of course, Zuemo does not have any special views on these gold worshipping women. Being in different positions, the way of looking at things is different. Just like Zuemo, an ordinary person in the previous life, although he did not hate gold worshipping women, he definitely did not have any good feelings. After becoming a rich man in this life, his thoughts have changed. After all, he is now a vested interest of gold worshipping women. If there are no gold worshipping women, where would the advantages of rich people like him be shown? Of course, the kind of gold worshipping women he is talking about are those who like rich people and do not give a word to ordinary people with conditions, and the green tea bitches who obviously like rich people, look down on ordinary people, and hang those ordinary people as ATMs are not included in this list. Moreover, through contact with a large part of gold worshipping women, as long as they are given enough material conditions, they can be surprisingly well behaved. But it is not repulsive. Zuemo really has no intention of communicating with the other party in depth today. On this day, he experienced 2 games. Although there was no CD for him, he couldn't waste all his time on this. "I appreciate your kindness, but I'll do it next time. I have something to do in the evening." Zuemo declined. Zao Nansu who was opposite, showed a look of disappointment when she heard Zuemo's refusal point, but she soon showed a decent smile. Okay, then you must contact me when you have time next time. After that, she took out a business card and handed it to Zuemo. Here is my personal phone number. Zuemo nodded with a smile, put the business card into the storage ring, and turned to leave point. After leaving the company, he found an unmanned corner and flashed into the Star Tower in an unknown space point. Zuemo looked at the giant egg in front of him, which was more than 30 kilometers in size. Point the beast god was still in the process of being conceived point, and from crossing G, she learned that she had accelerated the time in the area where the beast god was conceived to 1,000,000 times one day passed in the outside world. Point more than 2,700 years will pass inside point. However, it is not as easy to breed a natural beast god as imagined. Not to mention this beast god, that is a fusion of the two superior laws of time and space. After confirming that the clone still had no movement, Zuemo withdrew from the Star Tower. When returning from the strange world, Zuemo checked his points, a total of more than 32 million points. It is more than enough to exchange for some ordinary plant life seedlings. However, Zuemo was obviously unwilling to exchange only a plant life that can only reach the immortal level of Feng Hao point. However, plant life with a higher growth limit and stronger strength obviously cannot be exchanged according to his current points unless you wait for a while. Silent Hill in the strange world will start business. Maybe you can earn a lot of points in a short time. However, I don't know when I will earn enough points. Zuemo was naturally unwilling to wait like this. Then he thought of a way to get a large number of points. The vampires in this world point, you know, the vampires' magic originated from a certain magic in the dark book point, and in the dark book there is also a spell that can destroy all vampires at once point. However, with Zuemo's current ability, it is still a bit difficult to cast this spell point, but he found a magic circle in the upper layer of the dark book that can amplify his magic. As long as the dark magic is cast in the magic circle, the magic will be strengthened dozens or hundreds of times. Of course, this enhancement has a limit. The stronger the magician, the lower the enhancement point. Nevertheless, with the help of the amplification of this magic circle, he cast a spell to destroy all the vampires on the earth at once, and there is no problem. Point conservatively estimated, the number of vampires on the earth now is no less than 1 million point. After killing these vampires, at least hundreds of millions of points can be obtained. This is also the reason why Zuemo asked Avril to buy a lot of silver. After all, mithril is an indispensable material for setting up magic circles. After coming out of the Star Tower, Zuemo directly opened a space door and walked in. Point Kamatage point in the library. Point Wang was wearing headphones, holding an apple in his hand, sitting at the table and studying the magic book in his hand carefully. Point at this time, a space door opened in front of him. Point Zuemo walked out from inside. Point he casually placed 2 tuna sandwiches on his table. Point Wang's nose moved. Point seeing the 2 sandwiches on the table, his eyes lit up. Point he looked up and saw Zuemo standing in front of the table. Is this for me? Yes. Zuemo nodded. Point after getting a positive answer, Wang showed a hint of excitement on his face. How do you know I like to eat this? Guess. After saying that, Zuemo chuckled and walked out. Point in the room, Wang couldn't wait to open a sandwich and taste it, his face full of intoxication. Point he looked up at Zuemo's back in the distance. He seems a good person. A few minutes later, Zuemo found Master Guyi, who was making tea in a room. Point Guyi seemed to have expected him to come and had already poured him tea. After seeing his figure, Guyi extended his hand to signal, "Sit down." "You knew I was coming." "I guessed that all the parts that I couldn't see in the future should be related to you, and my experience this afternoon was blank when I saw it with the time gem." Guyi put down the teapot in his hand and replied with a smile. Point Zuemo was stunned when he heard it. It seems that it is not known whether it is because of the system or the Star Tower. Through the time gem, there is no way to spy on himself. Shaking his head, he stopped thinking about it. This is not a bad thing for him. Point after a pause, Zuemo said, "I came here this time because I want to inform you of something in advance." Chapter 117 Ghost Rider, Get the Hellfire. Zuemo stated his intention to completely exterminate vampires because then we will need to use the power of the Dark God book and the magic circle. The movement will definitely not be too small by then. With Guyi's ability, he would naturally notice it immediately. In order to avoid misunderstandings and troubles, Zuemo still thought it would be better to inform him in advance. After hearing this, Guyi smiled and nodded. My duty is to protect the Earth from dimensional invasion. I will not interfere too much in other matters, not to mention that this is something that is beneficial to the entire human race. Regarding her answer, Zuemo did not show any surprise on his face. He has known this for a long time. The reason why I came to Karmataj is to prevent unexpected situations to the greatest extent. At this time, there was a strange fluctuation coming from the direction of the library. Guyi felt the fluctuation. His face changed, and he quickly stood up and walked towards the direction Zuemo just came out from. Seeing this, Zuemo hesitated for a moment and then followed. After a while, the Ancient One came to the Eye of Agamotto. Where it's above your neck. As he pinched a seal in his hand, the Eye of Agamotto quickly opened. Among them, the green time gem emits a gentle light, which looks like a shining green eye. It wasn't until a few minutes later that Guyi lowered his hands and the Eye of Agamotto closed. Leo Wang stuffed the last bite of the sandwich into his mouth. What happened? Gu let out a sigh of relief. An incarnation of Mephisto has arrived. Mephisto, Lord of Hell. Wang swallowed the sandwich in his mouth with difficulty and then asked, that's right, but the other party didn't come for this world, but to deal with his rebellious son, the black-hearted demon. Hearing this, the king let out a sigh of relief. Should we send a few mages to stop it? Gu Yi shook his head. What we have to do now is to notify the 3 sanctuaries to strengthen the barrier with the Hell Plane to prevent Mephisto from trying to break through. Out of anger, after speaking, she set her sights on Zuemo. I thought you might be interested. When Zuemo heard this, he woke up from his deep thoughts. When he just heard the names Mephisto and Blackheart Demon, a name came to Zuemo's mind: Ghost Rider. If his prediction was correct, Mephisto and the Blackheart Demon were fighting each other for a contract in Ghost Rider 1. There seemed to be thousands of souls included in the contract. And these souls are of great benefit to demons like them. Well, I do have some interest in them. Zuemo nodded, knowing very well that Guyi also had plans to rely on him to deal with the Blackheart Demon. But he didn't care, because he was indeed somewhat interested in this matter. Not to mention anything else, the Blackheart Demon alone should not have too few points. Moreover, there is also an ability unique to Mephisto, the Fire of Hell. This kind of flame can be regarded as a very powerful flame in the magical world. This kind of flame seems to have the property of being incombustible and is said to never go out. Of course, there should be element of exaggeration in it. If that were the case, Mephisto would have been invincible a long time ago. Why would he still be hiding in hell, coveting the souls of the world with deliberate intentions all day long? Despite this kind of flame is of great use to Zuemo. Think of this. Zuemo asked, where is the other party now? The little town of Santa Fangansa. Okay, thanks. After saying that, Zuemo didn't hesitate, opened a space door, and stepped in Colorado. Salak Town. In a cemetery outside the town. Zuemo walked out of the space door. He took a look at the town in front of him. Adhering to the common feature of all American small towns, sparsely populated. In addition, the sky was getting dark, and the whole town was very quiet. Not far ahead of him, there was a small white wooden house. In the open space in front of the house, an old man with grey hair was chopping wood while wielding an axe. Notice the way Zuemo appears. There was a hint of vigilance in the old man's eyes. Who are you? Ignoring the old man's words, Zuemo glanced around, and finally his eyes fell on a shovel leaning against the wall of the wooden house. Before he came, he had already checked out the small town near Santa Fangansa. This is the nearest cemetery over there. As far as he knew, the contract was betrayed by the second generation Ghost Rider, Katashari, who carried it and hid it. The hidden location is a cemetery in a nearby town, and the other party hid the contract in a shovel. Zuemo stepped forward and picked up the shovel. The old man who was chopping firewood changed his expression when he saw this. What are you doing? Put my things down. Ignoring the other party's warning, Zuemo pinched off the handle of the shovel in his hand, and then took out a rolled up paper contract. He felt an evil aura from it. It seems that my guess is correct. Zuemo put the contract away, and looked at the old man opposite. Ah. You the second generation Ghost Rider? Hearing Zuemo's exposure of his identity, Carter Slay, who originally wanted to transform and take back the contract, changed his expression and temporarily suppressed his plan to transform. After all, with the remaining energy in his body, he can only support one last transformation point. After that, he will eventually die after consuming all the energy. Who are you? Why do you know my name and know that I hid this contract in it? Hearing this, Zuemo looked at a figure riding a motorcycle in the distance. You don't need to worry about this. You should stay here and be your Gravikeeper in the future. In this way, you can live a few more years. After saying that, Zuemo ignored the shocked expression on the other's face and rushed towards the motorcycle. It was obvious that the man in front of him was Johnny, the third generation Ghost Rider. Seeing Zuemo standing at the door, Johnny stopped the car. Who are you? Zuemo did not intend to talk nonsense with the other party and stretched out his right hand. A black energy wrapped the other party up. Johnny was confused. A moment later, he dragged a tiny flame out of the opponent's body and directly sank into the dark book. This tiny flame was the fire of hell. As long as there is a supply of dark energy, this spark will continue to grow and become stronger, and what Zuemo lacks the least is dark energy. Extracting a little from the opponent's body will not have a big impact on him. At most, his lifespan will be reduced by more than 10 years. Of course, Zuemo has already relied on dark energy to replenish the opponent, and his lifespan will not be reduced. Where is the Black Heart Demon? Chapter 118, Setting Up the Magic Circle. Johnny groped around on himself. What did you do to me? Don't worry, I just took some specimens. Zuemo gave the other party a reassuring look. You haven't answered my question yet. After hearing Zuemo's reminder, Johnny reacted. They are in the small town of San Francisco. Wait a minute, you haven't told me who you are yet. When Zuemo heard this, he stretched out his hand and waved it gently, and the portal appeared in front of the two of them. I'll explain this slowly later. You just need to know that my purpose is the same as yours, and I'm here to deal with the black-hearted devil. After saying that, he stepped directly into the space gate. Johnny looked at the familiar scenery on the other side of the space door, which was obviously the town of San Francisco. Seeing this magical method used by the other party, his eyes shone with surprise, but he immediately realized that he came to the old man in the cemetery to ask for the Saint Fang answer contract. Thinking of this, he quickly ran towards Carter Shirey. I need that contract. Hearing this, Carter Shirey pointed at the slowly rotating space door. He waved his hands helplessly. The contract has been taken away by him. Hearing this, the look on Johnny's face changed. Not caring about anything else at the moment, he quickly turned around, started his motorcycle, and rushed into the space door. Carter Shirey hesitated for a while, but gave up his plan to follow. Judging from this mysterious man's methods, he seems to know everything. There should be ways to deal with the black-hearted devil. The small town of San Francisco. Zuemo looked at this almost deserted town. The style is somewhat similar to Silent Hill. The buildings on both sides of the street also have mottled and dilapidated feel. Not far away. Two figures stood. A pale man was holding a blonde woman hostage. Zuemo could easily guess that these two people were the Blackheart Devil and Johnny's girlfriend, who was held hosting by him. Seeing Zuemo appearing in the distance, the Blackheart Demon looked at him doubtfully. Who are you? Of course someone can help you get home. Zuemo grinned. Then the figure appeared next to the Blackheart Demon, his hands already covered with a layer of light blue flames. This is the fire of hell that Zuemo created with dark energy. His fist hit the Blackheart Demon hard. The Blackheart Demon had no time to react before his body exploded into pieces of skin on the ground. These skin fragments were all stained with a hint of light blue flame point followed by a vague scream point. These fragments were burned directly by the fire of hell point. Zuemo raised his hand and looked at the burning flame in his hand with a satisfied smile on his face. It seems that the fire of hell is quite effective when used to deal with these demons. After a while Johnny also rushed over on his motorcycle. Seeing that his girlfriend was the only one left. There was a puzzled look on his face. Where are the two of them? His girlfriend was still in a daze at this time. Hearing this, he came back to his senses. One is dead and the other is gone. To her, everything seemed like a dream. She was originally held hostage, but was rescued almost without reacting. He only saw a man suddenly walk out of a portal, say something, punch, and then the monster holding him hostage exploded on the spot. The assembly line is not that fast. At this time, Zuemo had returned to Death Island. He knew very well that Mephisto's strength could not penetrate the dimensional defense constructed by the sanctuary. What the other party can come to is just a projection. He couldn't even display half of his strength. There is almost no value to him. Enter the Star Tower. He took out the Saint Fangansa contract. There are 1,000 souls sealed here. The souls inside are all residents of the small town of Saint Fangansa who signed a contract with Mephisto. The town must have encountered some kind of crisis, and the residents of the town survived that crisis by selling their souls to Mephisto. As it should be, after their death. All souls entered into this contract. After hundreds of years, these souls have all been transformed into evil spirits under the energy of Mephisto. This thing was of no use to him for the time being, so it was all transferred directly into the Dark God book. Maybe next time I can dive into the horror scenes of Silent Hill. Next comes the fire of hell. This thing has a great effect on him. In the most superficial aspect, he can use these hellfires to strengthen the undead creatures in the Doomsday world. The undead with hellfire, even though the variety of abilities is not as diverse as the Ghost Rider, but in terms of frontal combat effectiveness, it is definitely several levels stronger than Ghost Rider. Imagine billions of Ghost Riders. I'm afraid it can push Thanos' space troops to the ground and rub them hard. But there is no rush for this moment. Zuemo looked at the points on the system panel. Although he was also defeated with one punch, this black-hearted demon was infinitely stronger than those miscellaneous fish. A full 3 million points. He couldn't help but think secretly in his heart. I don't know how many points I can get by getting rid of Mephisto. It is estimated that it is more than 100 times this number, judging from the strength of the Blackheart demon. Compared with Mephisto, he is just a small fish. After all, a demon with slightly stronger power cannot pass through the dimensional barrier built by the sanctuary. As for the absorption of those 1,000 souls, it can fight against Mephisto, which is just the imagination of the Blackheart demon. If 1,000 souls can reach the level of Mephisto, then a demon like him is too worthless. It is impossible that there is only this dimensional demon god. In short, the Blackheart demon is just a whimsical child. The next morning. Zuemo stood on a small island east of Death Island. This island has no name, but it is already the largest island among the surrounding archipelagos. He planned to build the magic circle on this island. After installing a satellite shielding device, Zuemo took out the silver he had just retrieved and began to refine the mithril. 2 days ago, Zuemo had ordered people to open up a square kilometer of open space on this small island as a place to set up the magic circle. Zuemo kept refining mithril throughout the day. It was not until the sky darkened that he completely refined hundreds of tons of silver into mithril. He did not take time to rest. Zuemo directly carved on the ground with mithril. Carving a magic circle is a tedious and precise process. A magic circle of 1 square kilometer cannot tolerate any mistakes. Fortunately, according to Zuemo's current physical fitness, even not sleeping for a month is not a problem. After a full 24 hours, in the evening of the second day, Zuemo finally completed the arrangement of the magic circle. Sitting on the ground, Zuemo closed his eyes to recover the consumed mental power. It was not until 4 or 5 hours later, when it was close to dawn, that Zuemo slowly opened his eyes. He walked to the center of the magic circle. The dark book appeared in front of Zuemo. As his figure gradually rose into the air, he officially began to cast magic. Chapter 119 Plant Life, Star Eating Vine. As endless energy overflows from the dark book point, the entire sky above the island became dark, and the moonlight and starlight were all obscured by dark clouds. The magic circle on the ground emits a burst of purple light, and combined with the surrounding environment, where it is almost invisible, it looks like hell is coming. The black energy submerged into the magic circle on the ground point, then it was released again, slowly condensing in midair and turning into complex symbols. These symbols are arranged and combined in the air over time. A massive pattern eventually forms. The moment this pattern was formed, the entire space suddenly became quiet, and even the air stopped flowing. Seeing the pattern being generated, Zuemo did not hesitate. An incomprehensible spell came out of his mouth. After a while, the huge patterns in midair began to compress rapidly. With compression, the pattern gradually shrinks. At some point, the pattern seemed to reach a critical mass. The pattern shrank into a singularity and suddenly exploded. An invisible wave, centered on the pole, expanded in all directions at an extremely fast speed. New York. In a dark room in a bar, a girl who looked to be 18 or 19 years old was tied to a special rack. There were more than a dozen people surrounding him. These people were both men and women, and their eyes all fell on the tied up girl. The greedy and longing look in his eyes was as if he was looking at something delicious. At this time, a woman at the head of the crowd stepped forward. His eyes were shining brightly as he looked at the girl's snow white skin. His right hand stretched out from behind, holding a sharp dagger. She stuck out her tongue and licked it on the dagger. Then he placed the dagger on the girl's wrist and slid it gently. In an instant, a trace of blood flowed from the girl's wrist. It seemed that the smell of blood stimulated these people, and they roared one after another. In the horrified gaze of the tied girl, two sharp fangs protruded from their mouths. Obviously, these people are all vampires hiding among humans. Enjoy this feast of blood. The woman holding the dagger at the head let out a roar. Then, as if they had been beaten with chicken blood, these vampires rushed towards the tied girl crazily. These crazy vampires in front of me are about to pounce on the girl. The girl had closed her eyes in despair. A strange wave swept through the room. The movements of the surrounding vampires paused momentarily, as if the pause button had been pressed. After a while, the bodies of these vampires, starting from their feet, gradually turned into ashes and disappeared between heaven and earth. This scene happened in every corner of the world at almost the same time. Just 1 minute later, all the vampires in the world have been reduced to ashes. From then on, there were no more vampires in this world. On the small island, Zuemo slowly fell from the sky. The surrounding scene has also returned to normal. He ducked into the training room of the Star Tower, opened the system panel. Eyes fall on the points column above. Points. 3.32 billion points, 330 million points, excluding the more than 30 million points from before. A full 300 million points were gained just by destroying these vampires this time. Zuemo let out a sigh of relief. These points are completely enough for him to exchange for a powerful enough plant life. Without any hesitation, he directly called up the mall panel. Searched inside for plant life seedlings. In an instant, a large row of various plant life appeared in the mall interface. Netherworld vine, a vine plant life, which can be cultivated up to the domain lord level. Points required for redemption: 2 million points. Poison dragon grass, grass plant life, highly poisonous, cultivated according to the optimal plan, reaching the realm master level. The points required for redemption: 10 million points. Moyan vine, a vine plant with life, strong resilience, good at defense, and can reach the highest level of immortality at the feudal level. Points required for redemption: 50 million points. Star-eating grass, a grass-like plant life. The vine grass is tough and has extremely strong strangulation ability. It can be cultivated to a peak strength comparable to that of the King of Feng. Redeem the required points: 100 million points. There is a wide variety of plant life in the mall. There are hundreds of species. Zuemo was dazzled for a moment. There are even plant life that can be cultivated to the end, comparable to a true god level powerhouse. But that kind of price is far beyond what he can exchange now. At the end of the day, Zuemo could only choose the strongest plant life that could be exchanged for points based on points: the star-eating vine. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the star-eating vine, which cost 300 million points. Star-eating vine, a vine-like plant life that can evolve by devouring metal. The strongest can be cultivated to a level comparable to the top universe overlords. Points required for redemption: 300 million points. Compared to other plant life point, the biggest advantage of the star devouring vine is that it can improve its strength by devouring metals from the planet point, unlike other plant life point. If you want to cultivate it to the strongest level, you must use the best combination of treasures to cultivate it. As for the star eating vine, you only need to buy a part of the special metal ratio when you upgrade the level. For example, each level from level 1 to level 9 can be upgraded by swallowing the minerals in the planet. In this way, it will undoubtedly save a lot of points. As the system sounded, a black vine with a length of more than dozens of meters appeared in front of Zuemo, and the curled up vines almost filled the entire training room. Is this the star-eating vine? Zuemo looked at the vine that filled his entire vision. According to the system introduction, the plant life seedlings recognize the master and need the blood of the master to water it. Zuemo did not hesitate, took out a small sword from the 1000 machine disc and controlled the small sword to draw a stroke on his arm. Blood flowed out. It dripped on the black vine in front of him. After the blood fell on it, it almost immediately penetrated and was absorbed. However, Zuemo felt that this blood was far from enough to complete the recognition of the master. However, after some blood flowed out of the wound on his arm, it began to heal slowly. Seeing this scene, Zuemo sighed helplessly. According to this recovery speed, it is probably not enough to make the star-devouring vine recognize the master, even if it was scratched 4 or 5 times in desperation. He gritted his teeth and gave himself a hard blow. He directly scratched a wound more than 20 centimeters long on his arm. Blood spurted out and was all absorbed by the star-devouring vine. After a few minutes, when the wound was about to heal, the star-devouring vine finally completed its recognition of the master. Zuemo felt a special connection between him and the star-devouring vine. He could easily give some orders to the other party. He had an idea. The size of the star-devouring vine gradually shrank and finally became more than 1 meter long, sticking to Zuemo's arm and directly merging into it. Chapter 120, Secret Method of Shattering the Sky, Stark Expo. After the star-devouring vine was integrated into Zuemo's body, he opened the system panel again. The current star-devouring vine is not even at the planetary level. Zuemo plans to use the best proportioned metal first to let it devour and evolve to the star level. As the foundation of the first 2 levels, it is naturally best to use the best proportioned metal after exchanging the star-devouring vine. The system naturally has a metal ratio table for its perfect evolution. Zuemo did not hesitate and directly spent more than 28 million points to exchange for metals that can allow the star-devouring vine to reach the star level. These metals alone reached several million tons. With these metals, it only takes more than half a month for the star-devouring vine to reach the star level. This is also the terrible thing about plant life. As long as the resources are in place, the evolution speed is abnormally fast. Of course, the consumption of resources is also huge. These points are enough to raise thousands of humans to the star level although it takes a certain amount of time. However, this is not a loss. A perfectly evolved star-level star-devouring vine is enough to deal with tens of thousands of ordinary star-level humans. Came to a space in the star tower. Zuemo took out the purchased metal from the system space and then stretched out his hand and waved it gently. The star-devouring vine that had merged into his body flew out and quickly flew into the metal in the distance. Then the vines pierced into those metals fiercely. Those metals gradually disappeared in Zuemo's sight. At the same time, a huge cosmic energy vortex formed above the star-devouring vine. These cosmic energies also swarmed into its vines. Seeing this scene, Zuemo smiled and disappeared from the spot. For the next few days, Zuemo stayed honestly in the Star Tower training room. He has made up his mind to focus on the 2 superior laws of time and space in the future. With the bonus of the space-time beast god and the space-time gem, the training speed will naturally not be too slow. Moreover, the chaos monument can also be exchanged in the system. With such unique conditions, if he couldn't take this road, he might as well crash to death. Although various auxiliary conditions have not been met yet, it is difficult to comprehend the laws of time and space with this body. But he still plans to try to practice the secrets of space. These secrets are the application of various laws. Just like a complete set of formulas, you don't need to comprehend the laws too deeply, you can still apply them. Practicing these secrets not only greatly improves your strength, but also helps you comprehend the laws later. Finally, he found a set of the most basic space secrets, and the secrets in his mind. Shatter the sky. The laws of space can be subdivided into 3 major mysteries: space blockade, space strangulation, and teleportation. This secret method of breaking the sky is the most preliminary application of space strangulation. You can use the power of space to directly shatter a certain space, so as to achieve the goal of killing the enemy. Until half a month later, Zuemo flashed to the air in the ocean outside the island and looked at the ocean under his feet. At this time, under the water surface, a shark was hunting, chasing a huge octopus in front of it. Zuemo raised his right hand. He gently squeezed it in the direction of the shark. A faint wave flashed in the shark's position. The sea water in this area also produced circles of ripples. The ripples passed over the shark's body, and the shark's body was instantly torn into pieces, as if it had been ravaged by a pair of big hands. The bright red blood spread all around. After nearly half a year in the training room, Zuemo finally got the initial entry of shattering the space. However, with his current ability, at most he could generate a space ripple, which was far from shattering the space. Shattering the space is divided into 3 levels. After the first level is practiced, you can form space ripples like Zuemo, thereby shattering the opponent's body. The second level is to form a space tide that even ordinary realm master level strongman cannot resist. The third level is to shatter the space. However, according to Zuemo's current level, it is obviously far from the first level. I'm afraid he hasn't even comprehended 1/10 of the first layer, but he can already form this kind of space ripples. So far, Zuemo has come to a conclusion. The space stability in the Marvel world is far worse than that in the Devouring world. According to Zuemo's estimation, I'm afraid he can directly shatter the space without waiting for him to fully comprehend the first layer. Nodding with satisfaction, Zuemo returned to the practice room again and practiced with concentration. When Zuemo was immersed in practice, New York. The Stark Industrial Expo also officially opened. In the main exhibition hall, Hammer Industries is showing their latest research results. Marine Force, with an excited draw from Justin Hammer with the assistance of Whip Ivan Vanko, the intelligent war robot built by Hammer Industries slowly rose from the ground. Although the hidden dangers in Tony's body have been solved by Zuemo, for some reason, Rod still broke up with him, and with his acquiescence, he took the Mark III and was transformed into a war machine by Hammer Industries. At this time, Tony's figure landed on the stage. Before he could speak, all the robots on the display stand, as well as Rhodes' war machine, aimed their guns at Tony on the stand. Hey, no. Looking at the scene in front of him, Tony shouted. Then he controlled the armor to fly into the sky. He had just heard that Ivan Vanko was hiding in Hammer Industries, and he was going to ask about it, but he didn't expect that all these robots would start fighting without saying a word. There were thousands of people in the audience at this time, including Pepper. He would naturally not allow the fight to happen here. As Tony left, dozens of robots around, including Rhodes' war machine, all chased after him under the control of Ivan Vanko. Tony, flying in the sky, looked at the group of unmanned robots chasing behind him and felt a headache. At this time, a female voice sounded in Tony's mind. Mr. Tony, you can take them to the small island in the east, and someone will pick you up there. Hearing the voice ringing in his mind, Tony looked like he had seen a ghost. Who are you and how come you are in my head? The woman's laughter sounded in his mind. Mr. Tony, I'm just talking to you with my psychic power. By the way, my boss is Zuemo. Okay. Hearing Zuemo's name, Tony's face showed a look of realization. He turned around and flew towards the island in the east. Tony had no doubts about the woman's words. After all, he had experienced Zuemo's magic more than once. Take the meat that Zuemo gave him last time. After eating it for just over half a month, he has now turned into a tumbler. His strength has doubled. In less than half a minute, Tony landed on the island that the other party mentioned. It's called an island, but it's only the size of a football field. It doesn't even have a name. Landing on the island, Tony saw an old man with grey hair and his back to him not far ahead. "Who are you? Are you the person Zoo arranged to meet you?" After a moment, the figure in black slowly turned around. "That's right, you can call me Magneto." Chapter 121 Stellar Level Star Eating Vine. Hear this? Tony looked shocked. Seeing the old man's face, when he turned around, he instantly believed what he said. After all, because of the shrapnel in his chest, he had done a lot of research on Magneto. Naturally, he knew everything about the other person's appearance. "Is Zumo really related to you?" "Well, indeed, I'm working for him now." Magneto nodded. He had returned to Death Island half a month ago. At first, Eric left Lorna without saying goodbye. After she was pregnant with Polaris' mother, Lorna's mother could only remarry an ordinary person. This also led to the fact that, after he found Lorna, she was unwilling to acknowledge him as his father, let alone leave him. Helpless Eric could only return alone again. Until today, she was sent here by White Queen Emma. Tony was stunned when he heard this work before he could ask more questions. War machines and robots from behind also caught up. At the same time, a figure that was slightly larger than the normal llama landed in front of the robots. The visor opened, revealing the face of Ivan Vank. "Tony, nice to see you again." After speaking, he waved his hands, and 2 lightning whips were thrown out from his arms. Tony saw this and looked at the other party warily. It's okay for the other party to be alone, but now the other party has dozens of robots following behind. Each of them can fire a cannonball, and even his armor can't withstand it. At this time, Magneto, who was standing not far behind him, walked up. A gentle wave of his right hand back off. As he waved his right hand, Tony felt a strong force coming from his body, and the armor moved to the side uncontrollably. Magneto looked at the group of armors in front of him calmly. "Leave these to me." Hearing Magneto Eric's words, Ivan Vank's face was stunned. He looked the other person up and down. That's not a small tone. After saying that, he didn't talk nonsense and just waved the long whip in his hand and struck at the old man in front of him, who sounded a little crazy. But as soon as he moved, his expression changed drastically. The mechanical arm actually refused to obey his orders, and even after several attempts he could not lift it up. "A bad premonition suddenly arose in my heart." He quickly controlled the armor on his body. The power unit on the armor made a loud sound, and it sounded like it had reached maximum horsepower, but the armor's body remained motionless at that moment. He quickly issued attack orders to the robots in the rear and Rhodes' war machines. It was like a stone sinking into the sea, without any reaction. Magneto, who was standing opposite, had a relaxed expression on his face. With the help of Apocalypse, not only did his abilities completely recover, but he also greatly improved. Now he had a feeling. At full power, he can even cause the entire Earth's magnetic field to shift, wiping out all living things on Earth within a few hours. At this time, these armors and robots were really like toys in front of him. Let him decide. With a gentle squeeze of his right hand. The dozens of robots behind them shrank into an iron lump in an instant. Tony, who was standing aside, saw a trace of fear on his face when he saw this scene. Fortunately, this person is Zumo's subordinate. If he were an enemy, he would be almost as defenseless as these robots in the opponent's hands. Seeing that the other party wanted to attack Rhodes and Ivan Vank in front, Tony quickly stepped forward to stop them. "etc. The whipcord doesn't matter. If you die, you will die." But he had just confirmed that the reason why Rhodes was like this was entirely because the opponent's war machine was controlled by others. As one of his best friends, he naturally couldn't watch the other person die in his own hands just because of this. He stepped forward and explained to Eric. After Eric heard this, he didn't do anything again. Instead, he waved gently towards the 2 of them. The battle armor on Rhodes' body instantly scattered in all directions. Ivan Vank was directly crushed into pieces by the armor. As one of the most important villains in Marvel, Zumo would not let him go. He had already told them to kill him with his own hands. No matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat. You can't let the other person go just because the other person is a waste. Seeing that the matter is over, Magneto Eric nodded towards Tony, who was standing aside. "I won't be too involved in the rest. I am a bit old, so I have to go to bed early." After speaking, he spoke into the void. "Knock off on The island of death. Emma lazily curled up on the sofa and watched TV. She seemed to have heard something, and she looked stunned. Less than 5 seconds later, she looked at the TV screen in the distance again, as if nothing had happened. Other side. As soon as Magneto finished speaking, a purple portal opened in front of him. From the looks of it, it is obviously the work of Cheyenne Key. Seeing this, Magneto stepped in without looking back. Tony on the side looked at the scene in front of him in stunned silence. What kind of high-tech combat method was this? He was the whole time. Island of the Dead. Zumo, who was practicing in the Star Tower, suddenly opened his eyes. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes. His figure flashed and disappeared. When he reappeared, he had appeared in a space inside the Star Tower not far in front of him. A huge star-eating vine stood in the void. A full 108 main vines were waving unconsciously. Each of these main vines was thousands of kilometers long, nearly 100 meters in diameter, black in color, and shining with metallic light. When fully expanded, it was enough to cover half of America. Looking at the huge star-eating vine in front of him, Zumo couldn't help but show a look of amazement on his face. It really deserves to be a plant life that can grow to the level of a top universe overlord. The size of the first order star level alone is almost comparable to the huge size of the Moyan Vine Domain Master. There are 108 main vines. This kind of star-eating vine, even if the most powerful fleet in the world encounters it, can only flee in panic. It seems to have sensed Zumo's breath. The star-devouring vine in the distance began to wave violently. A wave of excitement was transmitted to Zumo's mind. Then, the star-devouring vine flew towards Zumo. During the flight, its size began to gradually shrink, and when it arrived in front of Zumo, it had become only more than 2 meters long. The 108 vines of the star-devouring vine were directly wrapped around Zumo's body. The appearance also gradually changed. Almost in the blink of an eye, it turned into a set of armor with a gleaming metallic luster, after absorbing a large amount of metal. The toughness of the vines of the star-devouring vine is a few points stronger than the 3rd level force armor with the double protection of it, and the feather god armor. Zumo is confident that it is almost impossible for an enemy to hurt him at the level of physical attack. Moreover, as a plant life, the star-devouring vine has a powerful force comparable to that of a cosmic level strongman at the star level. The enemies entangled by it cannot reach the cosmic level, and have no possibility of survival. Chapter 122 An Unexpected Call. After upgrading to the star level, if the star-devouring vine wants to upgrade further, it will need a huge amount of metal. Fortunately, there is no special requirement for metals when upgrading from the 1st level of the star level to the 9th level. Ordinary metal ore will do. This way, it will be much easier above the central Pacific Ocean. Zumo walked out of the space gate. He took a look at the endless ocean below. If the place with the richest metal deposits on the earth is now, it is undoubtedly the ocean. After all, almost all the mineral resources on land have been detected and are in a state of development. As for the mineral resources in the ocean, most of them are well preserved due to the difficulty of mining. Thinking of this, Zumo stretched out his hand and waved. The star-devouring vine appeared from his body, turned into a stream of light, and sank into the ocean below. Next, in Zumo's perception, the vines of the star-devouring vine began to expand rapidly. In a short while, all 108 vines stretched to thousands of kilometers long. After these vines spread out, they found their positions and plunged into the seabed. The star-devouring vine can sense the location of metals. Seeing it start to absorb metal ores to improve its strength, Zumo breathed a sigh of relief and turned to leave. The time required to evolve with these ordinary metals is much longer than those metals with special ratios, and it cannot be completed in a short time. The amount required is also not a small number. Zumo estimated that, even if the star-devouring vine absorbed all the mineral resources in the sea, it might not be able to reach the level of the 5th level of the star level. To upgrade to the 9th level, absorbing all the metals on the entire planet may not be enough. Of course, even if it is enough, Zumo will not let the star-devouring vine absorb it. If all the metals on the earth are really absorbed, the entire earth may become a situation. To be safe, Zumo just let it absorb all the metals in the ocean and then stop. There are plenty of planets in outer space for it to absorb. There is no need to destroy the earth for the sake of upgrading. After placing the star-eating vine, Zuemo returned to the island again. Now a month has passed. The silent hill in the weird world has been built long ago. Before he left, he specifically asked that he would officially start business after he returned. After all, this is a supernatural event. Once it starts business, it will inevitably attract the attention of official departments. If it depends on Julie and Alicia, I'm afraid there is no way to solve it. It is worth going there on your own. After all, this is related to a stable source of points for him in the future. Thinking of this, Zuemo directly activated the dream walking technique in front of the huge tree of time. Just as he was about to enter the weird world, the dark book between his eyebrows suddenly moved a little. Zuemo was stunned. After carefully feeling it, it seemed that he felt the call of a certain world. He hesitated for a moment. Zuemo followed the direction of the call and looked at a branch of the tree of time. This so-called tree of time is like a ray of light that keeps moving forward. Every moment, countless branches split from this light. Each branch represents a parallel world. Zuemo soon came to a world branch. In his feeling, it was in this world that there seemed to be a faint calling power. Without any hesitation, he directly entered this parallel world. After a trance, Zuemo's soul body had appeared above a town. Obviously, there was no isotope of Zuemo in this world. So, after entering, he existed in this state of soul body. He looked at the town below. Although it was night now, he could still see the general situation in the town. The town covers a large area, but judging from the architectural style and mottled and dilapidated walls of the town, this world seemed to be in the early 18th century. Seeing this situation, Zuemo suddenly realized, no wonder there was no isotope of himself in this world. Early 18th century. He was not born yet. How could there be an isotope? Of course. Now he can also find a body to enter at will. Although the incompatible body will affect his strength, it will not affect him who mainly relies on the dark book. However, he was not in a hurry to find a body, but flew towards the direction of the call he sensed. In the town, in a castle with a very large area. In a spacious bedroom. Two girls held a fragment of an ancient book in their hands and kept reciting the spell on it. A moment later, the blonde Aurelia glanced at her twin sister next to her with a disappointed expression on her face. Marika, this doesn't seem to have any effect. The red-haired Marika also stopped. What should we do? Are we really going to be the bride of that disgusting vampire? Hearing this, Aurelia showed a bitter smile on her face. Disgusting vampire, you seem to have forgotten that under the curse of the other party, the two of us are now disgusting vampires. After saying that, two fangs stretched out from her mouth. Seeing this scene, Sister Marika's expression became even uglier. At this time, Zuemo, who was standing outside the window in a soul state, listened to the conversation between the two and fell into deep thought. Another vampire? Did he have a grudge against vampires in his previous life? How could he be so easy to confront vampires? After Zuemo sensed the fragments held by the two girls through his mental power, he roughly understood the whole story. Judging from the situation, these two people should be favored by a vampire, and through the curse, they were also transformed into vampires, and after a period of time, they will be married to become his brides. However, the two are naturally unwilling to become vampires' playthings. I don't know where I found this spell to summon the devil. I want to get rid of the vampire with this from the spell. It seems that the one summoned is the god of the underworld. This is also a common method for these devils and demons spread the spell that can communicate and summon themselves to various worlds. When some humans encounter some unsolvable difficulties, they will place their hopes on these demons and get the help of the demons. By selling their souls, they solve their own difficulties, and the demons will get the other party's soul after the other party dies. It can be said to be a kind of transaction. It is also a channel for these demons to obtain souls. However, the result seems to be a problem. Now Ziseng has been completely controlled by Xingji with the dark book. Transformed into a cow and horse that provides energy to Zuemo. They are busy absorbing and transforming energy all the time. So where is the time to care about these people's summons? And their summons are received by the dark book outside the world. Attracted Zuemo. But Zuemo didn't have any resistance to this anyway. It's a matter of convenience. You can not only gain points, but also get to loyal subordinates. Why not do it? At this moment, a strong dark energy directly wrapped Zuemo up. Then, he flashed into the boudoir of the two girls. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Van Helsing, The Vampire Bride. The two girls who were originally depressed. They suddenly raised their heads. After all, they have become vampires, and their perception ability has also been greatly improved. Looking at the figure wrapped in black hair that suddenly appeared in front of them, a hint of joy appeared on their faces. They hurriedly knelt down to Zuemo. Master Demon, we have something to ask for. After getting Zuemo's consent, the two hurriedly told their experiences. The facts were almost the same as Zuemo's guess. The difference was that their father, the king of this small country, was also involved in this matter. From the two people's narration, Zuemo also understood. This is Eastern Europe in the early 18th century. This location is just a remote location in Eastern Europe. This place is still in a state of division. Almost every town is considered a small country, and the mayor dares to call himself a king. The father of the two is a king, but in fact, at best he is just the mayor of a larger town. The cause of the incident is also very simple. As their father was getting older and older, he was afraid of death. He got the address of a vampire from somewhere, and then took people to find him. His purpose was simple, that is, he hoped to gain eternal life by transforming himself into a vampire. As a price, he was willing to sacrifice his two daughters to become the brides of the vampire. Obviously, Irila and Marika in front of Zuemo became victims under the deception of their father. The two of them drank the special potion made by the vampire, and then transformed them into vampires through curse. And they would be married to each other later. After the two finished speaking, he looked at Zuemo with a determined face. As long as you can get us two out of this vampire, we are willing to sacrifice our souls. It was not until this time that Zuemo could see the faces of the two clearly. The elder sister Marika had long curly red hair, big eyes, and a high nose bridge. The most eye-catching thing was the other party's unusually prominent bust. If he hadn't heard she admit it herself, Zuemo couldn't believe that the other party was just 19 years old this year. Irila, with her golden curly hair, was very beautiful, with a hint of Eastern European style. But for some reason, Zuemo always felt familiar when he looked at the two people. But he didn't think about it carefully. Your souls are of no use to me, Zuemo took the dark energy around him into his body and shook his head. He was not a demon like Sisson and the others. Compared with souls, living people were more useful to him. Hearing this, the expressions on their faces changed. After hesitating for a moment, Sister Marika gritted her teeth and said, as long as you help me get rid of that vampire, we are willing to give you everything we have. Anyway, we are all giving it away. Of course, we have to choose a strong one. From the perspective of style, the demon in front of him is not a little stronger than that vampire. Are you sure, Zuemo opened his mouth to confirm. Seeing the two nodded. Then two contracts shot out from his eyebrows and floated in front of the two. After being transformed into vampires, the two were no longer human, but dark creatures. At the moment of signing the contract, Zuemo clearly felt that he could send the two people into the dark book like those undead soldiers with his mind. Of course, all this requires Zuemo to completely solve the vampire they mentioned. Zuemo did not hesitate. Instead, he asked, after solving the other party, you need to leave this world with me. If you regret it now, it's not too late. After hearing this, the two thought for a moment and nodded firmly. We will leave with you, Marika said. Their mother died of dystocia after giving birth to them. The only relative is the current king father. However, the moment the other party offered them to the vampire, their last bit of affection for this father had disappeared. Seeing that the two agreed, Zuemo did not hesitate anymore. He was about to set out to solve the vampire. After all, he came to this world temporarily and didn't know the time ratio between this world and Marvel world. It's better to get rid of the other party as soon as possible and leave quickly. Before he could act, there was a knock on the door. Then a middle-aged man walked in from outside. Looking at Aurelia and America in the room, the man said expressionlessly, "It's almost time. You two get ready. I'll send someone to send you to Lord Dracula's castle." Listening to the other party's ruthless words, Aurelia showed a trace of anger on her face. "I won't go. Why do you want us to be like this?" Hearing her words, the man standing opposite him suddenly sank. "What's wrong with vampires? Not only do they have eternal life, but they will never grow old. I finally got this opportunity for you." Hearing his words, his sister America couldn't stand it anymore. "That's just what you think. You are not worthy of being our father." He pointed at the other party and shouted angrily, "How dare you?" Hearing their words, their father Albert roared, "It's already been decided. You have to go, whether you want to or not." After saying that, he turned around and was about to leave the room. Zuemo was suspended in the air, quietly watching the quarrel between the few people. In his current soul state, the man naturally couldn't see him as long as he didn't want to point, but he didn't let the other party leave. He appeared in front of the other party directly. "Where is the vampire you mentioned?" Albert looked at Zuemo, who suddenly appeared in front of him and screamed. He dodged backwards and fell directly to the ground. "You, what are you?" Zuemo didn't have the heart to explain slowly to the other party. With a ray of purple light in his eyes, he stared at the other party again and asked, "Tell me, where is the vampire you mentioned?" Albert was affected by magic. His eyes became dull, and he uttered a place name, "Ancient Town of Transinia." After getting the location, Zuemo turned and looked at Aurelia and America. "You should know this place, right?" "Yes." Aurelia nodded. Then her body began to change dramatically. After a while, a pair of wings grew on her body, her feet turned into a pair of claws, and her skin turned pale. Seeing the other person's appearance after the transformation, combined with the vampire bride and the familiar faces of the two, Zuemo finally recalled Van Helsing. The two people in front of him seemed to be the two sexy vampire brides in Van Helsing that he had seen. Now is obviously before the plot happened. And the vampire they are talking about is obviously the ancestor of vampires, Dracula. Chapter 124. The undead army arrives. America on the side also transformed when she saw this finally. Under the leadership of the two, the three flew away. However, during the flight, Zuemo stretched out his hand and waved gently, and a black gas flew out from the bodies of the two people and sank into the dark divine book between his eyebrows. This was the mark left by Dracula on the two people. It was obviously done to prevent the two from escaping. A moment later, under the leadership of the two, they came to the sky of a small town. After arriving here, Zuemo could clearly feel the breath of vampires in a castle with a very large area on the cliff outside the town. The three landed in front of the castle. As if sensing the breath of Aurelia and the others, the gate of the castle slowly opened, and a pale man in a black robe walked out of it with elegant manners. "Welcome, my bride." But after coming out, he looked at Zuemo floating in the air, and his face was stunned. "Who are you?" As the ancestors of vampires, it was not surprising for Zuemo to see him. He looked at the other party with a smile on his face. "You can understand that I'm here to rob the bride." Hearing Zuemo's teasing words, Dracula's face on the opposite side darkened. You are overestimating yourself." After saying that, he stretched out his hand and waved it gently. A roar came from the castle, and a moment later, a werewolf jumped out of it and blocked Zuemo. Seeing this, Dracula no longer paid attention to Zuemo, but turned his head to look at Aurelia and the other person beside him, with a hint of excitement on his face. "Come on, follow me back to the castle. Help me develop and expand the vampire family. One day, vampires will completely rule the world." Seeing this, the two women did not obey his orders, but they hid behind Zuemo sideways. A few days ago, they were just two ordinary girls. Even after being transformed into vampires, their fighting power has increased by many times, but psychologically, facing Dracula, a vampire, they still inevitably have some fear. Seeing this, Dracula showed a trace of anger on his face. He felt that a hat of a special color had been put on his head. He immediately ordered the werewolf next to him, kill him. The werewolf received the order and roared. Then he jumped up and pounced on Zuemo. Zuemo saw this, not panicking at all, glanced at the other party and flicked his right hand lightly. An inconspicuous flame shot out from his hand and landed on the werewolf in midair. As soon as the two came into contact, the flames burst directly like falling into gasoline. The flames instantly engulfed the whole body of the werewolf. Before he could even scream, the werewolf's huge body turned into ashes. Seeing this scene, Dracula's face changed. Even after he transformed, it would take at least a few minutes to kill the werewolf head on. He couldn't kill the werewolf instantly like the other party. Thinking of this, a cautious look appeared on his face. His body involuntarily retreated slowly to the back. At the same time, he gave an order in his heart. In the castle, countless vampires like bats flew out and rushed towards Zuemo and the other two like locusts. Following closely behind were hundreds of huge werewolves. It seemed that these huge numbers of subordinates gave Dracula a little confidence, and the expression on his face calmed down. He turned around and flew to a terrace above the castle. "I'll let you know what will happen if you provoke me." After seeing Zuemo kill the werewolf instantly, Irila and Marika, who were excited on their faces, saw the little vampires and groups of werewolves rushing out of the castle. Their faces changed drastically. Although in their opinion, the summoned demon should be much stronger than the vampire in front of them. But it can be seen with a clear eye. The other party descended is just a phantom. As for whether he can deal with such a large number of enemies, the two of them are not very sure. Zuemo saw the scene in the sky. Instead, a hint of excitement appeared on his face. Originally, he thought that he only had to deal with one Dracula, and at most a few werewolves. After all, in his impression, Dracula did not seem to have many subordinates. Otherwise, he would not have fallen to the point where he needed the vampire bride to take action when something happened. But now it seems that there is an unexpected gain. He guessed that these subordinates may have left or died for some reason over a long period of time. But he did not think about this much. The more the number, the greater the benefit to him. Do you want more than people, Zoo? Emo's mouth corners slightly raised. The dark book flew out from his eyebrows and floated in the air in front of him. Then a grey mist spread rapidly from the book to the surroundings. The large open space below Zuemo was covered. Dracula saw this scene. He carefully controlled a vampire bat to fly into the mist. The moment the bat entered the mist, its body melted directly, as if it had fallen into sulfuric acid, leaving only a skeleton, falling to the ground in free fall. Seeing this, Dracula's pupils shrank slightly. He quickly controlled the bats and the werewolves on the ground to stay away from the grey mist area. Fortunately, the mist did not spread towards the castle. Just half a minute later, under Dracula's gaze, the mist began to slowly dissipate. Before he had time to be happy. He saw that in the large area where the mist faded, the ground was already dark and full of various monsters. After the mist completely dissipated. He could see clearly that the people standing on the ground were all huge skeleton soldiers holding various weapons. In front of the skeleton soldiers, thousands of undead knights wrapped in tight armor were neatly arranged. Conservative estimates put the number of these undead at more than 100,000. Dracula stared at everything in front of him in amazement, and a trace of fear arose in his heart. But he quickly suppressed this trace of fear. He is immortal, so what if there are more people on the other side? Besides, before the fight, who knows how strong the two sides are? Maybe the skeletons of the other side are just for show. Zuemo, floating in the sky, showed a satisfied smile on his face. These undead armies were naturally received from the Dark God book before he left the Doomsday World. Of course, if it is not enough, he can spend some time to summon all the billions of armies in the undead world. These undead themselves exist by relying on the energy in the Dark God book. Just like ordinary necromancers summon undead creatures from the underworld, he can summon and drive them at will. But first of all, he doesn't want to waste time. Moreover, the space in front of the castle is limited. If there are more, the skeleton soldiers will not even have a place to stand. Besides, with these 100,000 undead troops, they are enough to deal with the vampires and werewolves in front of them. In fact, with the combat power of the skeleton soldiers, if there are 1,000 of them, it would be enough to crush the opponent. But who made him rush? Chapter 125. Destroy Dracula. 3 Vampire Brides. After everything was ready, Zuemo did not hesitate at all. He waved his hand forward. The still undead army on the ground started to move instantly. The undead knights in the front, more than 3 meters tall, waved their swords in unison and charged at the werewolves blocking the castle gate. The skeleton soldiers behind, leaving a small part to protect tens of thousands of skeleton archers. The rest jumped high and jumped into the group of vampires more than 10 meters high in the air and chopped at the vampires with the bone knives in their hands. Those vampires did not expect that the skeleton soldiers had such a strong jumping ability. Before they could react, the skeleton soldiers' bone knives had already chopped them. Almost in an instant, half of the vampires were cleared. After the remaining vampires reacted, they quickly raised their altitude point. At this time, the skeleton archers who were protected and surrounded quickly put the bone arrows on the bowstrings. Then a trace of soul energy shot out from the eye socket and sank into the bone arrow point. The bone arrow turned into a stream of light, and after a flash, it had already shot into the body of a vampire. Before the vampires who were shot dead fell down. A red light flashed on the bone arrows that were inserted into their bodies. Boom. Together with the vampire's body, it exploded. For a moment, the whole sky was full of huge fireballs. After a round of volleys, there was no vampire in the sky. The werewolves on the ground were not much better off than the vampires. There were as many as 4,000 or 5,000 undead knights. The undead knights in the front row all had nearly 3-meter long spears in their hands, with the spear tips facing forward. Under the full charge of the infinitely enduring skeleton horses under them, the werewolves in the front had almost no power to resist and were pierced by spears one by one and then fell to the ground and collapsed into pieces. The werewolves behind reacted quickly, leaping high and smashing into the cavalry camp point, but they found out when they jumped into the air. The undead knights in the middle of the team all raised the tips of their swords upwards in addition, the strength of these undead knights was not much inferior to that of the werewolves. These werewolves who jumped in were all destroyed without making any waves in the end. The werewolves who had not had time to jump stopped jumping. Seeing the undead knights who were about to rush to them, these werewolves turned around and ran towards the castle behind. Dracula, who was standing on the platform above the castle, saw this scene. He didn't care about being angry. The legion he was proud of was almost wiped out in less than 5 minutes. The combat effectiveness of these undead legions can be imagined. In addition to Zuemo, whose strength was unknown in the distance, he had no chance of winning. At this moment, his body shape changed. In a few seconds, it transformed into a vampire that was almost twice as big as a reeler and looked a bit like them. It flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Zuemo, who was standing above the army of undead, noticed this scene instantly. His heart moved. A huge bone dragon slowly flew out from the side of the castle and blocked the path in front of Dracula. The length of this bone dragon was over 100 meters. Compared with it, Dracula was not even as big as one of its claws. After the bone dragon appeared, its right claw swung out like lightning. Like slapping a fly, it slapped Dracula directly towards Zuemo and the others. Dracula, who was in midair, let out a scream. Under the powerful force of the bone dragon, almost all of his bones were shattered. If he was not immortal, this alone would have killed him. Despite this, after it fell to the ground, its body still couldn't move at all. Although it was immortal, it didn't mean it wouldn't be injured. It would take him at least 10 minutes to recover from such a broken bone injury. But Zuemo obviously wouldn't give him that time. Slowly falling in the air in front of him. Dracula, who was almost fainted from the pain, saw Zuemo coming. He quickly begged for mercy while forcing himself to endure the pain. Please, let me go. These 2 women are yours. No, 3. Another one will come tonight. They are all yours. I hope you can spare me for their sake. Although he claimed that he was immortal. But he also knew in his heart that the so-called immortality was relative. Demons who were thousands of times stronger than him might die, let alone him. It was just that he had never encountered an enemy who was capable of killing him before. Zuemo looked at him with a smile on his face. If I kill you, they will also be mine. As soon as he finished speaking, a trace of hellfire popped out of his hand again and fell on Dracula. In an instant, his body was devoured. Half a minute later, only a puff of ash remained, drifting away with the wind. Merica and the reeler who was standing behind Zuemo, watched the whole process from beginning to end. At this moment, they had only one thought in their minds. Strong, too strong. The vampire who was flattered by their father had almost no power to resist in the hands of their master. Zuemo did not notice the expressions of the 2. Instead, the soul shadow fell towards the castle below. Except for a few werewolves that jumped off the cliff to escape. Most of them had been killed by the undead night. After Zuemo entered the castle, he seemed to know the way. He walked towards the back of the castle. A moment later, Zuemo entered a huge cave inside the mountain. The top of the cave was covered with dense egg-shaped objects. Sure enough, Zuemo sighed in his heart. After destroying Dracula, he felt that there were still a lot of vampires in the castle. Then he followed the breath to come here. Obviously, these are all eggs laid by vampires, and in the wooden coffin next to it, there are the bodies of several female vampires who have become mummies. It seems that the vampires' previous wives all died after giving birth to a large number of vampires, so Dracula planned to marry a few new brides. Zuemo controlled a skeleton soldier to come forward and break a vampire egg. After checking, he found that he had one. He showed a hint of joy on his face. There were hundreds of thousands of vampire eggs in this cave. He didn't hesitate, and a large number of skeleton soldiers rushed in. In a few minutes, all the eggs were destroyed. Zuemo calculated that he had earned more than 2 million points in just one night. If he came a few dozen times, the points would be enough to buy the metal combination that would upgrade the star-devouring vine to the cosmic level. After emptying the room and confirming that nothing was missing, Zuemo walked out of the castle. However, there was already a tall woman with long black straight hair outside. The woman was talking to a reeler and the others. That's good. All 3 vampire brides are here. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.